All right. So we're going to be talking about FHA loans, first time home buyers, multifamily. And I just want to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about here. Market IQ. Get your market IQ up if you're trying to buy real estate going into this next cycle, or first time home buyer, right? Multifamily. What is the process? We have a real estate investor with us, Tanner Max. So stay tuned. Let's get going. All right. So I think we got everything going correctly. What up, Tanner? How's it going?
What up? What up? How you doing, man?
I'm good. Hey, I'm interested. I don't know too much about real estate. I'm not big on
Mhm.
it. So I want to figure out, and I hope the audience too can share this. Share I think we're on the same page here. How to
Yep.
leverage these first, I don't have a home. So how to leverage these FHAs. What is an FHA? How to leverage it, how to make money in real estate. From somebody who actually knows, and we're live. So if you want to ask those questions in real time, go ahead and ask those questions. We are live. And let's get started. What is an FHA loan first and foremost? What is an FHA loan, and how does it offer an advantage for a first time property owner?
Yeah, man. So first time home buyers, they allow FHA loans, which basically stand for Federal Housing Administration. It's a federal government program that basically allows everybody to get the, American dream, the house, two kids, and white picket fence, right? And they're going to allow you to do this with little to no money down. The FHA loan basically allows you to put 3.5% down on a house, which we could take a $300,000 house. It's going to be about 10,500 that you're going to put down on that house first time. So everybody can only use it one time. And that's why, like I said, the government, they just are like, well, we want everybody to have an opportunity to buy a house. So why not take advantage of it? My first house, I didn't take advantage of it. I wasn't educated enough to take advantage of it, but hopefully we can educate some people today to understand 3.5%. Maybe I have to save some. I know this is stock channel. Maybe I could just put it into Bitcoin. Maybe I could put it into some stocks. Yeah, that's great too. I'm here to show you kind of the benefits of real estate, and I'll actually also show you the risks and the rewards of benefit of real estate as well.
Okay, good. Yeah. So also, first time home buyer FHA loans. Who? How do you qualify for this FHA loan? If you don't mind us telling, like, how would you qualify for it in general?
Yeah, so lenders, so all lenders, I wouldn't say all lenders, most lenders will provide a FHA loan. It's basically kind of like a VA loan. VA loans or veteran loans where you can put 0% down. FHA loans are similar. They just allow you to put less down. Basically, you have to have about a 580 credit score, but I've seen things happen where people don't have to have 580 credit scores. But most lenders will have to have 580 credit scores. This is going to be something that we're talking about a lot. But lenders, everything's negotiable on a lender. So don't think of a lender like set in stone, 7%, 580 credit score, 2-year job. Don't think of it like that. Lenders need to have their money working. They're going to look at you as how good of you got some friends that you could lend money to, some friends you can't lend money to. They're trying to figure out, who are you? Can I lend you money? Are you going to pay it back? Do you have a good job to pay it back? They're trying to figure out, are you a good place to put this money, because I have to have this money working. I can't just sit on this money. I have to have it working. So they need to lend it out at a certain pace. They don't want to lend it out to people that can't afford it, and they don't want to lend it out to people that are uneducated on certain things. So those two things will kind of slow you down, I guess, from it. But say, like I said, there's different ways. Say you don't have a 580 credit score, you can actually, with a 500 credit score, I've seen where you can put 10% down to still get it. So, hey, put a little bit more skin in the game and I'll loan you this money. And that's usually how everything works. They want you to have skin in the game. That way that you're not just like, I have 0% down, I'm just gonna give it back to the bank. The bank doesn't want that. They want to have you at least have a little skin in the game, or able to execute the property, and manage it properly, the property properly.
So then when it comes to real estate, you really don't need like an 800 credit score. You just need what, like, because a lot of people are like, I need to get a perfect credit score. Now, if you have a crappy credit score, just get it up to above 580, above 600, and you're going to be qualifying for this FHA, right? So why, like, can you explain, or can you just kind of give your take on the push to make your, like, tell people why they don't need a perfect credit score, obviously to qualify, but you can let the gas off on trying to make your credit perfect, right? Once you get to what's the highest credit score for real estate where it's like it doesn't really matter if you get higher than that. This is the best score you can get, basically.
Yeah, it seems like around like maybe 740 or something like that. That's about as much as it gets. Now, in my position, I'm more of like I'm an investor, right? So they don't really look at my credit score at all. They look at the property, what I'm bringing them, how I've managed other properties in the past. They look at the properties that I have in the past and how they cash flow. They look at the property that I currently have, how much it rents for. They'll look at the property, how much I'm putting down. They'll look at how much monthly it is. They want 1.25% monthly to cash flow. So if your mortgage is $1,000, they want you cash flowing 1,250. So that there's little things like that that they look at for when you get to be an investor. When you're starting off, they're gonna want to make sure that you're just able to pay the loan mostly. A lot of people they'll see don't really even have credit. They'll have bad credit because they don't have very much credit at all. My personal experience with that is get a credit card, not a credit card that you can go into consumer debt. Obviously, we teach against that. But get a credit card that you pay off just like you do your debit card. So every month, hey, I'm just going to put gas on this. Every month, I'm just going to put groceries on this. I'm gonna pay it off the 30th of every month. Get yourself in a consistent payoff schedule like that. And that's an easy way to get credit. You don't want to get these high interest loans or interest credit cards at 25% and stuff. Try and get a 0% credit card for 3-4 months that you can not eat the interest on. Basically, you don't ever have to eat the interest if you just pay it down. So just pay it down every month, and that's the easiest way to get your credit going. You really only need, like we're saying, 580 credit score. It's not very hard to get. You do have to pay on time to do it, but you get a credit card for 6 months, you should be able to get 580 credit score. Most people's problem is saving. Most people's problem isn't credit. It's, hey, I like Netflix and I can't cut the cord. Hey, I like Starbucks. I can't stop drinking coffee. Most people's problem is I can't get $10,500, and even if I did, I'm going to invest it all into this one asset. And like I said, I think that the biggest thing for real estate is, and I'll get into it right here, is that there's 4 ways to make money off of the real estate. So one, you'll make money off of the rent. Now we're talking about the extra money basically that you get. $1,000 mortgage payment, I get $1,250 in rent payment. So that $250 I put in my pocket, I put it in an account for a rainy day, but that is actually profit to me. That's the first way to make money, is the profit off of it, the rent. Second way is it actually pays off your debt. So that $1,000 doesn't just go to nothing. It actually goes to you owning that asset. It also, part of that $1,000 can go to principal, which is you owning the asset. Part of that $1,000 is going to go to interest. Interest basically means that the interest to borrow the money. Interest you could write off, so that's actually a good thing for the interest, is you can write it off. The third thing that happens is the property appreciates. So when the property over time, in the 80s, houses were $80,000, right? Now they're $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. Over time, the property appreciates, and to get the money out of the property, you can do something that's called a cash out refinance. Right now, it's a little bit harder to do because everybody got 3% loans. Now they're 7.5%, 8% loans. So you don't want to cash out refinance right now. But basically, a cash out refinance, how it typically goes is when the property goes up and go for it.
Well, yeah, 1 second. Before we get there, because that's what we're gonna hit too is the 4 ways you can
Right.
profit, but that's a little more complicated. I want to ask a little more. We'll get. I want to get to that, but first I
Okay.
want to ask a little more like basic questions so that people can, first time homebuyers can think about this, and then we get to the profit side. So I did want to ask, who's the
Okay.
first who for these first time homebuyers? Who do they contact first? Let's say, oh, okay, well, you know what? I want to get this FHA. Who's the first? What's the first step that they need to take as far as who they're contacting?
You need to contact a lender. I contact 3 to 4 lenders every time I do anything. There's a couple really good spots for people that are trying to just contact like one lender and get a bunch of offers. One is called Lend.io or Lendio. To be honest, I don't know. It's Lendio. And they'll take your everything that you submit to them. This is my job. This is my credit score. This is all the stuff. They'll take everything and they'll run it by a bunch of different banks or a bunch of different lenders. And so the first thing that you want to do is try and get a lender. A bunch of it's going to be different, right? So some lenders are going to say, I'm going to give you $300,000 at 7%. One's going to say, I'm going to give you 400,000 at 7.5%. There's going to be pros and cons to each loan. So just because one has a higher interest rate doesn't necessarily mean it's not the right one for you. You got to figure out kind of what you're looking for. Hey, I like this really nice $400,000 house. I really want to get it. I can't get it with a $300,000 loan. Maybe I do have to get another extra half percentage point, on the loan just to afford it. And so, and one more thing that I want to tell you guys on the down payment. And I don't really even want to tell people this because you can get in trouble doing stuff like this. But on the down payment, say you don't have any money, say you have zero money, you can actually get hard money, or you can get the state. I got it wrote down here somewhere. The USDA has 0% loans. The VA, which is actually veterans, definitely if you're a veteran, use a VA loan. Get 0% down and really good interest rates. They have down payment assistant programs where they'll literally help you with the down payment. So obviously this is you got to watch out for the sharks on some of this stuff because people will be trying to damn near steal your house from some of this. But down payment assistance program, this is from the government that they run it. They have grants that you can use. They have certain states that'll go 20% with you on a property. So they'll buy it with you and they'll front the 20%. And almost anyway, there's hard money that you can go and get a hard money lender, which is a little bit more interest, and you want to make sure you can pay that down quicker than not. But hard money is a good way as well.
Okay, yeah, before we get into that again, because I know you got all the info, but I want to bring it down a little bit. So a lender for some people, what the hell?
Oh,
Some
okay.
people don't even know what a lender is.
True.
Who is a lender? Are we talking credit unions, banks, Wells Fargo, your local, who are the lenders?
Yep. So your lender will be all of the above. Anybody with cash is a lender. So you got lenders like US Bank, Wells Fargo, Chase, the banks all lend. But then there's also just lenders. There's companies that do nothing but lend money. And, they borrow it from the government, borrow from bonds, borrow it from wherever, lend it out. And so I would actually recommend people go to lenders, not to banks. Banks will, unless you got good relationship with banks, if you got a business through a bank, if you got a lot of money with the bank, if you do mutual funds with the bank, if you got some relationship with the bank, you can go through them. And I go through my banks every time just to see what they'll give me. Most of the time, these random lenders that from Kansas City or something, they'll be able to give you the best rate. Depending on the property, if you go into like a bigger investment property, like a commercial property or something, then it would be different because you kind of want somebody you trust more. But buying a house, they're giving you money. They don't got nothing in the process. It's just a lend. They're just lending you the money. So the
So
cheapest one.
so you're just looking for the best deal.
Mhm.
which we're gonna get to what the best deal is. Now, let's say they do contact a lender. Maybe it's their local, maybe it's their Wells Fargo, their bank, maybe it's a
Mhm.
local, what is it, credit union, or some lender that's going to give you a better rate. Well, how do you choose? Do you have to choose a real estate agent, like that next step? Um, is that the next step, is choosing a real estate agent after the lender like qualifies you? Okay, you qualify. Do you choose a real estate agent, and how? How do you choose that?
Yeah. Yeah, so what will happen is your lender will give you a pre-qual letter, pre-qualification letter. It'll say, "Hey, this buyer, we'll lend them $400,000, say, right?" And so that's basically giving your realtor the go to show you properties. Now they could show you properties if you don't have this, but I'm married to a realtor. They don't like showing properties unless you got this paper, right? And because they don't want them to waste their time. And so once you get the paper, then you start looking at houses. This process can go really fast right here because I would hedge against it going fast, but basically when you get the loan, you could be 30 days away from closing on your house because once you get the realtor, and the realtor, how we get them is the same way. We got to research word of mouth, different stuff like that. I'm gonna just tell you guys my experience. Most of the time, these realtors don't know. They know how to sell a house. They don't know the investment strategy. They don't know, I'll talk to my CPA and she knows how to do taxes, but she doesn't know my investment strategies on like, hey, I'm trying to cost segregation this one. And same thing with realtors. They'll understand, hey, I know how to sell a house. I know the paperwork. But if you ask them like, hey, is this porch look good, or like they're not going to be able to tell you different stuff about the house. What you want to do is you want to find a really good appraiser and an
Okay.
inspector. And so what happens is the bank will get an appraiser to see what the house is worth. Most of the time it's worth what you pay for it.
What's an
um,
appraiser? What's an appraiser? Let's break it down to the
okay.
smallest. What is an
Yep.
appraiser? And then you said
Hey, slow
appraiser
me
and a
down.
what?
Slow me down if I need
No,
to
no,
here.
yeah, yeah. So you said, hold
um
on, you said an appraiser and a what?
Appraiser and an inspector.
And an inspector.
So
Let's hold those two thoughts really quick. Appraiser and
mhm,
inspector. I want to answer Tigger Media. Are credit unions better than the big banks for mortgage loans? According to
yes.
Tanner, it sounds like he's saying whoever has the better deal. So they could be, but also it really depends on your situation, which we're going to get into how to find a good deal, right? So it could be a credit union, it could be a big bank, or it could be some lender. But
Mhm.
we're going to get into later how to find a better deal, because some people just say credit unions are better, maybe for their situation, right? It's always going to be a little different, correct?
Credit unions generally will give you better interest rate.
Okay.
I'm actually yesterday I was talking to a credit union. This is perfect. They're gonna make me put 40% down on a property. They're gonna give me good interest, but they're making me put 40% down on this investment property. I've got these other banks gonna allow me put 30% down. So I'm gonna go with these other banks that tell me 30% down because the 40% at ENT, which is a credit union, they're making me put 40% down there. So like I said, they are better. He is right. Generally, they will have better rates. Credit unions don't have to. I talked to my banker one time about a credit union. He got all pissed, but credit unions don't have to go by the same like rules as a bank for some reason, and so they have a edge on the banks. I'm not 100% reason why, but for some reason they do. So he is right. Credit unions, but you are right too. Search. I won't never just go with the one. I'm gonna search 4 or 5 to get a pool. You can get one super high. You can get one super low. You're gonna be able to figure out what's the best deal for you if you get 4 or 5 of them. Um, it's a lot of paperwork sometimes. Most people it probably won't be if you just got a W-2. You just send them W-2 and 2 statements of your bank. And but if you got a lot of jobs or a lot of businesses, it comes with a lot of paperwork. But it's better to search, 4 than just get one and just go with it because you don't really know what you're getting.
And real quick here, we're gonna answer your guys' questions. We want to go live. So we got a smart guy here. Nash made it. Thank you for jumping in, giving your comments. So I know, yeah, Dave Ramsey advice. There's always somebody smarter. There's always somebody that's done it before, but this is live, so you can ask real questions in real time. Dave Ramsey, it's great. You can go listen to different real estate people and hear what they have to say. But again, this guy, my guy Tanner, he's done it before, and you're asking him live, right? I'm gonna try to get through the small questions here, so you don't have to call up an advisor and ask all these questions. So I get what you're saying, bro. You probably know somewhat of what you're talking about. I'm not nobody's saying you're not, but this is just to get real-time feedback, you know what I mean? So maybe you disagree, try to add to the conversation. If you don't mind, try to add to the
Yeah.
conversation. Ask smart questions that people might not think about. That'd be good for you. So if you or otherwise, hey, we'll have you on live. Maybe you want to talk about it. If you think if you think you have a better idea, then you jump on. I'm not going to ignore you. I'm just want to make sure that this brings more value to the watchers who are watching, more value to them, not just, oh, this isn't good or this is better, right? Every situation is a little different. So try to ask really good questions, or maybe questions that I missed here. So anyways, thank you for
Hey,
coming on though.
yes. Thank you, dude, for saying that question. Dave Ramsey, you know, average person should listen to Dave Ramsey. If you're trying to be elite, you can't listen to Dave Ramsey. He talks about never going into debt. He talks about, how are you going to buy your first house? You got $300,000 to buy your first house. Obviously, one of his 6 steps is to get out of debt, accept your house. So he allows one debt, which is your first house, but he never allows a second debt. And so I listen to Dave Ramsey. I've got Dave Ramsey. I pay for Dave Ramsey for my employees, because every employee should listen to Dave Ramsey. You're right. I'm an investor, so everything I do is almost opposite of Dave Ramsey. He's smart for people that don't know how to save money and don't leverage very, very good. But if you're trying to get several properties, you're going to be 80 years old before you get your second one with Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, no, you're good, Nosh made. Maybe you have a point, but I think we're talking past each other. So uh who's the audience? Well, I am right now. I'm the audience. I'm trying to figure out how this process works, and hopefully other people can learn while they're listening. Is it specifically for people who have no money and are broke? Probably not. It's just, I'm going to ask the questions. If you got good questions, go ahead and ask them. You probably have really good questions, stuff that I haven't thought about. But either way, it's live. It's a live questioning, right? So I'm going to try to figure this out for myself. I'm going to be greedy
Yeah.
here and take as much information as I can. And if you want to jump in there, Nashmed, I think that's your name. But yeah, thanks for coming on, bro. I appreciate it. I'm not going to take anything personal. We're not little softies. So we'll listen to what you have to say. But yeah, Dave Ramsey, same thing with investing. I just want to throw this in here. Dave Ramsey, he's ex Bitcoin, he's ex all these things that make money because his audience is people who are irresponsible and don't
Yep.
really know what they're doing. And if you're very advanced, or you want to be more advanced, or you want to aim for the clouds, Dave Ramsey's not going to be your guy, right? So it just depends on, you're right, who the audience is. And right now, I'm the audience when it comes to this. And hey, hopefully somebody learns. If they have questions and they put them in the chat, then they become the audience also. That's why we're doing
Yep.
this live. So next, you said inspector. You said you need 2 things. You need so first we said you got to contact a lender, right? Which could be a credit union. It could be some off the books lender. It could be a big bank. Okay, find the best
Yeah.
deal. We'll get to that. And then you got to choose a real estate agent. Most of them don't know exactly, they know how to sell a house, but they don't know the best deal. Okay, so you got to choose a real estate agent at some point. And next, you have to find, would you say, an inspector and
Appraiser.
an
So,
appraiser. Okay, let's go over that.
yep. Your bank will get you an appraiser, but you can get an appraiser if you want for the property. I don't really usually ever get an appraiser for the property because that's more for the banks that they're going to say, hey, is this property $500,000? If it is $500,000, then they're going to get it appraised. Hey, this one sold last week for $500,000. This one sold for 450. It's close, So that's kind of how the appraiser works for the bank. The inspector is for you. So what you need to do is you need to figure out whenever you get an inspector, that's the one thing almost more important than your realtor. And if you got a really good realtor, they help out a lot because a really good realtor will do a lot of this legwork for you. Like if I was your realtor, because I'm really good at looking at properties and kind of going over them. Oh, this is going to need painted. Oh, this is how much this costs. So if you have somebody that's an investor as a realtor, they can help you out with some of this, but an inspector does this for a living. So what an inspector does is he'll go through the whole house and he'll say, hey, there's mold up here. He'll check every single light fixture. He'll check every plug. He'll check that the dishwasher works, that the disposal works. They'll do a scope in the plumbing. They'll make sure the electrical is right. They'll look at the panels. They'll look at the roof, the exterior, interior, flooring. They'll give you a rundown on, hey, these are things that need fixed soon. These are things that you could deal with, and these are things that are good. Maybe they kind of do them like green, yellow, red. Kind of red being you need to deal with this, yellow being moderate, green being this looks good. So you could have stuff like this, say like a water heater, 10 years, about what 10 to 12 years is what you can get out of water heater. This water heater is 8 years old, 9 years old, water heater is gonna be, $4, $5, $6, $7, $8,000. So just so in 3-4 years you're gonna have to pay for this water heater. So you'll have stuff like that the inspector will bring up, and you'll be able to understand, oh, okay, the roof is actually got hail damage on it. Oh, okay, maybe I can negotiate now. So the inspector is, once you get into the contract, then then you get your inspector to look at the property, and then the good thing about that is you could renegotiate the property at that point. Say the inspector says, hey, this has asbestos, or hey, there's mold in the basement, hey, the roof needs redone. I've actually backed out of spots just like this. Inspector
Real
comes.
quick, Tanner, how do you get an inspector? Is this something you kind of search up on Google? Do you just Google inspectors around
Yep.
my area?
Yep. And a lot of this is research or word of mouth. So, I can tell you guys really good inspectors in my city, but everybody lives everywhere. So I can't really like just name a good place to go. All this is kind of like researched, or look at reviews. Post on a Facebook post, hey, I need a good inspector inspecting this house that I'm about to buy. Most of the time, word of mouth is the best way to get it, because people, hey, this is my inspector, he's really good, stuff like that. I trust that better than even like a review. You know what I mean? Somebody telling me, hey, I had experience with this guy and he did really good, especially if that person is decent investor, like has bought 1 or 2 houses.
So it's almost better to, okay, you can go online, look for an inspector that has really good reviews, or if you know somebody who kind of does real estate already, hey, who was your inspector? Do you trust them? Was
Mhm.
there a good inspector, right? So the
Yep.
inspector process is, okay, go find an inspector. How much are we pay? Is this like a one-time contract? Like, do you pay them like upfront here's $500? What does it
Yep.
look like to pay an inspector? Are we talking $1,000? Are we talking $100? How does that?
Yeah, so the inspector could be ranging, right? So if you're going to get into these quadplexes, duplexes, it's going to be a little bit more, because they're going to have to run more tests, right? They're going to have to run this sewer scope and that sewer scope. They're going to have to do a few more things, right? So the inspectors, most of the time they're about like 6, 7, 800. I've had them on like quadplexes and stuff be about 1,500. But even on that quadplex, I think I got a quote at 900. It's just the guy I trusted was 1,500. So and like I said, all this stuff ranges based on where you live. You live in California, it might be higher. You know what I mean? This is just from
Okay.
Colorado. This is my experience from kind of what it's cost.
And is this usually like a one-time thing? So you know what
Yep.
I'm saying? It's a one-time payment, inspector somewhere between. Obviously, if it's a single family, it's going to be less. If it's a quadplex, it's going to be more expensive to get that inspection done, right?
And a bigger
Okay,
house is going to be more, a smaller house is going to be less. They're just,
it's going to be
they're
less.
just kind of what they do in square footage, kind of.
So the inspector pretty much gives you not the real value, but they give you a better value or a better I guess fundamental understanding of, okay, what is the house going to actually need? What is it like? If it's worse, then hey, let's bring that price down for you. You bring that information to the lender. Is that correct?
So no, so what happens is the banks will get the appraiser. So
Okay.
the appraiser will tell you what the house is worth. My opinion is they just tell you what you paid for it, pretty much. So they're really just trying to get the sale to go through. You can tell, because if you say, hey, I bought this thing for 650, it's going to come out at 655 is what it's worth. You know what I mean? So it's almost like, I don't even know if they're for the banks. So whatever for them. The inspector is going to tell you what's wrong with the property, not necessarily how much it's worth, but he can tell you how much it's going to be like cost to fix it. Right. So, the appraiser will say, hey, this thing, you want it for 500, it's worth 510. So that means that you're good. Right. And then the appraiser will say, hey, it might be worth 510, but it's going to cost, $20,000 in fixes. So then you can come back to the negotiating table and you say, hey, listen, I would have bought this house, at 500 if it was perfect, but the roof needs this and the plumbing needs this, and there's going to be another $10,000-$15,000 worth of stuff. So let me back off that price $10,000 or $15,000 now and renegotiate with you, because this is stuff that I just found out. So it's
Okay.
new information, and I'm going to renegotiate the price. You don't always have to renegotiate. I don't think I've actually ever renegotiated. I've just backed out before, or I guess I have. I tried to renegotiate the price. They said no, so I backed out.
So
And so
the
you
so the
can.
in so the inspector's kind of your defense to, like,
Mhm.
say, "Hey, I can get a better deal possibly if the inspector finds some stuff wrong because you haven't bought it yet." So you
Yep.
get the appraiser. Now, does the inspector come before? Do you hire the inspector before the appraisal, or is it after the appraisal you come in and say, "Well, let me get a deeper inspection," or it doesn't really matter, you just wanna make sure you get an inspection and see if
It
there's more things wrong, you might be able to get that price down or negotiate that price down, right?
Yeah, I think that the inspection comes first, because the bank doesn't want to spend money on an appraisal unless the inspection comes back, unless you guys can negotiate the inspection. I believe how it works. But like I said, everything happens in 30 days. So it might be same time, 2 days
Okay.
after, stuff like that. Everything in the contract is kind of listed, like it's called an inspection objection date. So you basically have about 10 days once you sign the contract. Hey, I'll buy it for 500,000. Sign the contract. You'll have an inspection objection date on that contract. It's usually about 10 days. So in those first 10 days, you'll actually get get the inspector in there, look at the whole property, tell you what's wrong with it. If there is something wrong with it, like let's say that one of mine had sagging plumbing. So the plumbing was sagging, which would have made an issue, right? It was going to cost, I think, like $15,000 to fix. So I didn't even want to fix it. I was just like, hey, if y'all fix it, and I'll just re-inspect it. So everything's up for negotiation in these properties. Like, you can say, hey, give me the money to fix it, or you could say, hey, you fix it, or
Mm.
you could say, hey, buy down my percentage and I'll fix it. And that was one thing that I did see. You popped up one. It said, how do I buy down my percentage? I don't know if you could pop that
Oh,
one up
yeah, no,
again.
we'll get to that. Let's finish the inspector thing off. I just wanna make it
Mhm.
clear, and then we'll get to Ray Hayes for sure.
Okay.
So, my whole thing was this, okay, to put it into context, let me take this off real quick. Ray, we'll get to your question. So, the inspector is sort of, the insurance to make sure you don't overpay to some degree. Is that kind of a way to look at it?
The
Because the appra
inspectors, to make sure that you know what you're buying.
that
The
you know what you're
inspectors,
buying, yeah.
yeah, just to make sure, like, hey, you know, this got some issues, or hey, you got 10 grand of expenses coming in 5 years, and just so that like, as a owner, like, all right, well, is that okay or is that not okay? And
Okay.
if it's not okay, go back to the negotiation
There
table.
you go. So it helps out the
Mhm.
yeah. So sort of like a you don't want to overpay. So the inspectors is telling you, hey, is this even worth buying? If it is,
Mhm.
try to get the bank to pay for this, or try to get the people who own it to
Seller.
fix it first,
Mhm.
right? To fix it first. So don't overpay. Get a better deal. The inspector helps you to get a better deal. The
Yep.
appraiser, the appraiser is going to come from the bank side, correct?
Shows you what it's worth.
Shows you
The
where it's worth. Okay, perfect.
Mhm.
All right. So let's get to
And
go ahead.
one more thing, your realtor should be able to give you a cost segregation or not a cost segregation analysis. Shit, I'm going blank. Basically, what it is it's a way to say, what is this property worth? Well, the way that we value what is the property worth is based on what the neighbor's house sold for. right? So we try and get like within the last 3 months, 6 months, what did a half a mile around us sell for at the same thing, 4 bedroom, 3 bath, garage, porch. You kind of get all that stuff. Maybe this one's a 3 bedroom or a 4 bedroom, 3 bath without a garage. Well, maybe a garage adds 15,000 value to a house, so you can negotiate it in there. So the realtor should be able to do a lot of that stuff. What I've realized is that a lot of realtors don't know what they're doing. They just know how to sell it. They're not like investors, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, and we'll revisit that if we need to. Go ahead and answer. I'm gonna put you on solo real quick. How can you buy down points? What is the average amount of money needed to buy down points at a 0.25% point?
Yeah, man. And so, how can you buy down points? Basically, how we buy down points is we go to our lender and we're going to say, how much is it to buy down a point, or a quarter of a point is what we're doing here. So, say that he says, hey, it's going to be, $2,000 to buy down a quarter of a point. I can't actually tell you how much it's worth to buy down a point because it just depends on the rates at the time and how kind of everything's moving at the time. But how you can buy down points is you ask your lender and you say, hey, lender, I've got a 7.5% interest rate. I'm trying to get it down to, 7. What would it cost? He'll actually end up being able to get you a cost of, say, oh, okay, it's going to be this. And then what you need to look after you figure out your buy down, because a lot of people buy down and shouldn't be buying it down. You should only buy it down if it makes a monetary sense to buy it down. So say for instance it costs $2,000 to buy it down to 7%, but you're going to sell the house in 5 years, right? That's like kind of your exit plan. I'm going to keep it for 5 years. It might not make sense because you might not have saved $2,000 with that 0.5% in, 3, 4, 5 years. If you're keeping it long term, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, buy downs actually are a better investment with your money, because then the interest at the back end of it is where you're going to make your money. All interest is mostly front loaded. So basically, meaning you're paying almost all your interest. I think it's like 90% maybe of your interest you'll pay in the first 15 years. So the banks allow it to be front loaded to where they have to they get all their payments up front versus on the back end. So whenever we're trying to buy it down, we need to make sure, hey, at the rate that I'm buying it down, how long do I have to keep this loan for that to make sense? Your lender should be able to tell you that number. So what you want to do is you want to say, hey, I'm wanting to buy my percentage down and I want it to get it to this percentage. How long do I have to keep the loan for that to make sense? And they should be able to pump them numbers to you.
Hey, real quick, that buying down the points,
Mhm.
are we talking about it can't be rates. What does this mean? Like what are we talking about here? Are we talking about buying down? What is the points, right? I'm confused. What are we even talking about?
Yeah, so say for instance a lender gives you a rate of 7.5% interest, right? And you say, man, I really want to get it down to like 7 to afford the payment. And so basically what can happen is you can basically say, hey lender, can I pay down the points? And this is another good thing is you need to contact, like, especially in the times we're in, we'll jump into Zillow, but especially the times we're in, these properties are sitting, so you got to negotiate with these sellers. These sellers are hoping somebody buys it, so just negotiate with these sellers some of this stuff. Hey seller, will you pay for my interest to come down? I can't buy the property because it's 7.5% interest. You pay it down to 6.75%, and I'll buy it. So all this stuff can be negotiated in the contract. Hey, there's issues with some windows. Buy down my interest and I'll fix the windows. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything's negotiable in the deal. Everything's negotiable with the lender. Everything's negotiable with the mortgage buyer.
Okay.
I mean, with the
So
mortgage seller. Sorry.
now this sounds kind of funny then. So let's say you get a 7% interest rate. You can essentially say, hey, let me put down an extra 50K to get that interest rate down to 6%, something like that.
It's not even that much. It'd probably be I'm trying to think because I've done it before. I want to say it's something like maybe $3,000, $4,000 for 0.5%. And
for half a
so
percent?
yeah, but you gotta whenever I tried to do it, the dude was like, "Well, are you gonna keep it for 7 years? Because if you don't do it, then it won't be worth it." You know what I mean? And I was like, "I don't even know if I am gonna keep it for 7 years," so I just didn't do it. But that's what you gotta figure out, is you gotta figure out, what's my game plan? Is this a fix and flip, which wouldn't be smart to pay down the interest because I'm just gonna get rid of this loan anyways? Or am I gonna hold this loan for a long time? Then it might be worth it. But this is the other thing. What are we thinking that rates are gonna do, Jeremy?
Drop.
Okay, so do we want to pay down a rate that's going to drop anyways? So all this you need to be thinking about whenever you're trying to buy down
Wait,
rates.
what do you mean? Hold on. What do you mean there? Because I'm trying to process it. I'm not used to this.
Yeah,
Pay down the rate. Are you saying it'd be better not to pay down the rate and just wait till they drop and refi? Or are you
yeah,
is that what you're saying? Okay, okay.
yeah. So if the rate is coming down,
Oh, it'll mess you up because if they drop, you just paid for nothing.
you paid for nothing,
Because
right?
your rate doesn't drop with the market rate.
Exactly. So
Oh,
you're
I
going to go
see.
from
Okay.
7.5 to 7, but then in a year and a half, it's at 6.5. You see?
Right. Okay.
So
So
you
you wanna
paid to
wait.
drop
Okay.
it, but you didn't foresee what was going to happen
Right.
in
So
2
it
to
only
3
makes
years.
sense to pay down the rate if the economic cycle is like rates are already like as low as they could be. Let's try to pay them down even more if you really want to. Now, my
Or
other question was
plateauing.
this. My other question was this. Could you essentially pay down the rate? Like, is there a cap? Could you pay the rate down all the way to like 2%? Or
I
did they
bet
say
you that
no?
there's a cap on it somewhere, you know what I mean? I'm not
Yeah, 'cause what if you
100%
go to
sure what
0?
the cap.
You know what I'm saying? Like $3,000 or 4,000 for 25 basis points. You could
Yeah,
essentially do 40,000 for like 2.5%. I'm sure people would do that. So they probably have a
yeah.
cap somewhere. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's a cap like, "Hey, we borrow it at 4.5%, so you ain't getting below
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
5.5% or something like that." But you
Right,
can buy it down, so, and that's another way. You gotta watch that too because some mortgage companies, some loan officers, they'll say, "Oh, well, ours is 7% if you buy it down, but you're paying to buy it down." You see what I mean? So, like,
right,
some people will try and trick you like that and be like, "Well, ours are 7% with $2,000 buy down," and it's like, "Yeah, but this one's 7 and a quarter without the 2,000, so I could buy them down," stuff like that. So, and like I said, the rates are a little bit tricky to look in like just be like, "Oh, a quarter is worth this much on this much house." You kind of got to get into the minutia of the numbers. You got to get your lender to tell you what he's looking at, what break even point is. 7 years is break even point. If you do that, or you can keep it for 8, 9, 10 years, then that'll be a good move. If you're gonna keep it for 6 years, it's probably not a good move. And then, like you're saying, future look, is the market plateauing? Even if it's plateauing, it's good to buy down rates. But if you think the market's going to drop in rates, then it might not be the time to buy down the rates.
all right. Hey, real quick, let's answer Tigger Media. I know you said this was a while back. You said what happens in that 30 days. I think he was talking about the inspection and the appraisal. What's happening in that 30 days? Is it, am I right? Is the bank just sort of processing your information?
So the bank already will have your information before they give you the pre-qual letter. So they kind of already know who you are and they know kind of what you're gonna do. Or like they kind of know who you are up front. In those 30 days, what's going to happen is you're going to have like first 10 days are going to be like inspection objection. There's going to be a date that you're going to say that there's going to be a deadline where I can for sure get a loan or I can't get a loan. So there's 5 or 6 ways to back out of the contract. Even when you're in the contract, it can be an inspection. It could be something as literal as a running faucet, that's super easy to fix. You can get $50 at Lowe's and fix it, but you can back out for a running faucet if they won't fix it. So you're pretty secure in the contract at first. The appraiser will go in after your inspector, and then you'll also have a deadline where you need to get the banks to loan you. So the banks will give you that pre-qual letter. That's just saying like, we'll give you the money, but we have to pre-qualify the property as well. And so once they get that kind of through, then everything kind of goes pretty smoothly because there's not a whole lot of like it's a more lifting on the realtor and the title company's end than your end when you get into contract. When you get into contract, it's more just inspector and then negotiate, and then cash. Make sure that you have, the cash at the end.
Okay. So yeah, hopefully that manages it. So let's come up to speed. I know this is kind of all over the place, but we're doing a live to answer your questions also with my questions. So going to multifamily, the variables here, I saw a couple of them. Can you kind of explain, because we're in the process of, let's say you're trying to get a multifamily, you're in the process of it. Are you familiar with the self-sufficiency test for like a fourplex or a threeplex or a multifamily?
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so basically the self-sufficiency test is similar to what I tell you guys on the 1.25% test, right? So a bank isn't going to loan you unless the property is a good buy, which actually is awesome for investors because we don't want to buy properties that are upside down and don't make sense financially, right? So the bank's actually helping you with the numbers end of stuff. So it's kind of the same example that I gave you guys. Say that your mortgage is $1,000, then it needs to make 1250 to qualify for the bank to even loan you. Now, this is actually a good thing for us because it caps what people can ask for these properties, especially during COVID and stuff, or after COVID. Everybody was asking astronomical rates for stuff. And even right now, I'll get into stuff and I'll be looking at things. People want too much for the interest rate currently. So what I do for people that say that they want too much for their property, maybe not too much for their property, but too much right now with 8% interest, right? So what I'll do is I'll show them the numbers and I'll just basically say, hey, look, dude, at 8%, bank won't even loan me on this shit. And so that actually gives you like a negotiation tactic. I can't even get the money to buy it at that rate. You got to come down. And
Mhm.
then so that's kind of a negotiation tactic. The bank will almost set the market. It's like cap rate. Cap rate is basically what you can make off your money if you bought the thing in cash. So like cap rate will set the market as well, but the basically the 1.25%, what you want is, it's called PD. It's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So you have these costs on everything, and they want to just make sure that after everything's paid, we still have 25% profit left, because you need that 25% profit for fixes. A water heater goes out, a roof needs fixed in 10 years, stuff like that. You need that. At least I try and get 30% off every property. I try and get 30%. So if it's $1,000, I go 1,300 at least on the rent, and that's the number I'm trying to minimum hit. A lot of times you can go over them, but minimum I'm trying to hit that rate. But the banks will hold you to it because they're not going to let you buy property that doesn't cash flow like that.
Okay, so it's basically, and I had an example. Oh, here it is. I want to throw this up here. Maybe we'll be able to recognize this. So, um, so basically, this would be. I know it's kind of blurry, but and I should have had my actual. Oh, there. Wait, can you guys see this or no?
Yeah.
You can see my mouse.
Not your mouse.
Oh, okay. I was hoping it would let me see the mouse. Let me see. No, it doesn't let me do that. So let's just go the second row, right? Interest rate, principal, taxes, insurance. That's what you were talking about, right? That's the second row, guys, that we're looking at. Not the listed price, right under list price. It says interest rate, and then to the right of that, it says principal and interest payment, taxes, insurance. That's what you were talking about is going to add on to the monthly payment, correct?
Yes, and all that will actually get paid for through your mortgage. So I know I'm talking about a lot of stuff, guys, but they dumb it down for you. It's not like you have to pay 15 different things. They pay it all with your mortgage, because your mortgage isn't going to allow you not to have insurance. Your mortgage isn't going to allow you not to pay them property taxes. So everything's paid for in the mortgage monthly. So they'll take the end year cost and they'll add it into your monthly expenses. So you never don't pay the tax. You never don't pay the insurance. They make sure of it because it's their property, to be honest. You're just
So
trying to buy it.
that self-sufficiency test is basically once you add insurance, taxes, all that. What was the other thing? Insurance, taxes, principal, interest
Principal
payments,
interest.
insurance. Once you add all that, you just want to make sure that the property yields, or the payment for, because if you're doing a quadplex, let's say you're doing a quadplex, right? They want to make sure, at least if the payment is $10,000 a month, they want to make sure, or not 10,000 a month. They want to make sure that the rent, so like three of the actual occupancies can pay. They say there's four because you live in one of them. They want to make sure three can pay for the mortgage payment each month. At least three, right? 75%.
Yep.
Is that,
Yep.
and that's kind of what you're saying, 75%. But you said it another way. You said you want to make sure you have at least 25% profit. That's what you were saying, right?
Yeah. And like I said, that's a bank. They'll let me turn on my camera.
Okay. All right, yeah, that makes sense. It's
No, that,
confusing. That's why I wanted to do this, because and we could
mhm.
always make it a little more clear, but there's so much things to think out there, so many things to think out, that it's like, okay, well, let's dive into these questions a little deeper.
Yeah.
Um, when getting a loan, do you have to tell the lender if the property is to be my home or is an investment property? Do they treat the loan differently?
Yes, good question. Good question, Trigger Media. Um, they do. So if it's your property, and I've done this some, but if it's your property, then they're actually going to get you in certain states and certain lenders. The state I'm in, I believe the state that you're in, Jeremy, you can actually on a personal loan get 5% down payments. So in an investment property, they're going to want 20, 25, or 30% down, depending on a bunch of different stuff. 20% if you are multifamily, they want at least 25 or 20% down.
This is
Um,
outside of FHA, right? We're not talking FHA right now.
yes, this is outside of it. FHA, you can buy even on that 3.5%, you can buy up to a quadplex, maybe even a fiveplex. I know you can buy a quadplex. I think you can buy a fiveplex even on an FHA loan, which is 3.5% down. The trick is you have to live in one of the units to do that. And like I said, Jeremy, we could jump into the Zillow or whatever, but it's definitely
I
if
think
you're an investor, then you definitely have to put more down because they're
because that's not
looking at it.
FHA. That wouldn't be an
Yeah,
FHA. Yeah.
they don't like these rich people, you know what I mean? They don't want people buying 100 houses and stuff. So it's like, hey, if you want to keep buying houses, 20% down on the investment. This is what I've done for people that want to follow how I do it, right? So I bought my first house whenever I was young and poor, right? And so I bought the house. It appreciated in value. I bought it perfectly. It appreciated in value about 100 grand in the first 2 years. And so what I did is I saved up another chunk of money and I went and bought another house. But I have this loan already at 5%. And so I don't got to do nothing else with that loan. So I just ask it another loan for 5%, and they give me another loan for 5%. So this loan's at 5% and this loan's at 5%. I think that the rules are 6 months living in it. I don't know. There's stupid rules like that. I'll tell you right now, a lender will never come by your house unless you're not paying, right? And so, and then this is another thing that a lender told me one time. I told him because I was being real right up front with him. I said, I'm not paying 20% on this property and I'm not living in it. So what do I do? And then he just said, don't worry about it. We'll say you lived in it for one day. That's what he told me. And so,
Okay.
take it how you want. I'm not saying to be illegal with stuff, but whenever you're buying properties, I don't think that they come by your house and see if your pictures are up on your wall. You know what I mean? I
Right.
think it's just, loan stuff. They're just trying to see, is he going to live in it? Mine, I actually did live in it to get the thing, but I actually did a fix and flip that I didn't live in, that I was like, hey, I'm going to fix up this thing. Is this cool with this much? He was like, yep, we could do it like this. I had good relationship with the bank. So a lot of it depends on that. But it is different.
Okay.
Investment is
Now, Chavez, you said you think rates will drop for houses. Yeah, I don't want to say we went over that. But we do think rates will drop, which why we think it'd be dumb to try to pay down your interest, because it's going to fall anyway at some point, more than likely. Can we tell the future? No. but we can predict based off of history, and the Fed has done hiking. So I think that's why we're doing this, because those rates are going to come down for housing mid to end of the year. They're going to come down, and it's going to be probably one of the next optimal ways to invest in real estate. Now, if you're a big real estate guy, you probably already know, but this is for beginners. I'm a beginner. I don't do real estate. So I want to utilize an FHA loan and only have to pay 3.5% and possibly even pay 0% down with, if my credit score is like 7 something. So I should be able to get almost a 0% down fourplex. That's what my goal is Tanner. So we're gonna go over that in a second. I want to actually hear what you say about that. But before we get there, let's go through these really quick, right? And then we'll get to the whole strategy part. So banks, so just real quick. So if I get a quadplex, the banks are going to be able to use, because this is a big question for people. I don't have a steady income. My income is all over the place because I'm trading. I'm not having steady income, right? So
Mhm.
some months I don't get no income, and then boom, one month it goes up a lot. So basically, I don't have steady income. But for the multiplex, or let's say it's a quadplex, I'm gonna live in one of them. I'm gonna rent out the other. I heard the banks will actually use the other units as income. They'll recognize it as income on the application.
So they won't recognize it as income unless you have the property producing for a year, so, under like an LLC, and it's taxed and all this stuff. But what they will do is they will count it against the debt to income. So say for instance, we get a quadplex. I got a quadplex, $3,500 a month, right? That I pay for it. So say say $3,500 a month, but I rent their units for 1450, right? So 19 plus 19. So it'd be like 3,800, right? That I make total for, or actually, no, that wouldn't be right.
About estimated.
It'd be like 58, 5,900. I don't know. We'll say 6,000 total, right? That we could rent this whole quadplex out for. Well, and say we subtract one of them, 1,500 for my unit, which they would eventually add back in. But they won't take the whole $3,500 and say, can you pay this 3,500? They will take into consideration it's already renting for X amount, right? So say that it's 3,500 and it's renting for, I don't know, say 2,500. They're only going to look, can you afford $1,000, right? Because these are already under year-long contracts, stuff like that. So can you afford, if something happens to one of them, basically, can you afford the difference, basically, of it? And for people like you, stock people, if you have been trading stocks for 2 years and you're consistently making money, they will count that as consistent income. So, I don't know your situation, Jeremy, on how long you have been trading the stocks and everything like that. But if you can consistently show whatever, I don't care if I'm doing art, I don't care if I'm a YouTuber, if I can show the consistency that, hey, I've been able to make money for 2 years doing this, they will consider anything income if you can prove it for 2 years. I don't know about prostitution, but anything, legal, they might.
Well,
Drug dealing, probably not.
now, here's what my point was. I thought I heard some people saying that when you are applying for the loan, right? Let's say you're applying for the quadplex or whatever, that the bank will go ahead and qualify and say, okay, so um, you're getting a quadplex. We're gonna use 75% of that as you have to meet that 75% qualification rate, or whatever it is, percentage rate.
Mhm.
Now, what I heard was, let's say you live in one and there's 3 others. They're gonna use the other 3 to say, "Okay, well, this will count this towards your income to see if you can actually afford this loan." Is that true? Like, that's what I heard, that they're
The
gonna use
it
that.
it
Your first
it
one, you didn't buy it yet. You don't own it yet, right? You don't own
mhm.
any property. This is your first property. You're using FHA, and you're trying to get the quadplex, and I heard that they will use the 3 other properties, because you can only use 3 anyways. You can only use 75% of the whole value to count as an income to qualify for. It sounds kinda weird, because you really don't have that income yet, so it's like
Yeah.
future income. Oh,
And
no.
see, I haven't heard of that, but I do know that they will count it against the debt. So people have
Oh,
these
okay.
things where banks want it to be debt to income. So they want you to buy a house or buy a property, they want you to have under, or when you buy the house, they want it to be 30% debt to income ish, right? So say that you make $3,000 a month, they only want $1,000 of debt. That counts as everything, your cars, your credit cards, everything debt, and your house. They wanted about a third your debt. Some of them will push it to 40%, 45%, but generally they want it 1 to 3 debt to income ratio, basically, right? So you don't want to, or what ends up happening is they don't exactly like have the income that property produces isn't yours yet, but it does count against the debt that it says. So, say for instance, it's $3,000. They're not going to look like you have to make $9,000 to qualify for this $3,000 loan. They're going to look at it as, okay, those other ones paid off all of it, but 1,000. So, can they qualify for the 1,000? And then that'll put you back up to
So it
you
just
make
helps the
3,000.
ratio. It just
It
helps
helps
the
with
debt
your
to income.
ratio.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I was gonna
Yep.
say that's I don't even have that income yet, but they're basically saying, okay, well, this is future income, so we'll count that against what you're borrowing.
The debt.
Okay.
Yep, yep. So we'll
Yeah.
we'll, we'll
All right.
qualify you for more debt because the property's producing income.
There you go. You're qualifying for more debt. Okay, that makes more sense. I was wondering because again, you can watch videos, but you can't ask more specific questions, which is why we're doing the live here. Ray
Yes.
Hayes says, "Do you know anything about buying a mobile home as a primary property or a secondary home? Are mobile homes a tax write-off?" I think that's kind of what he's asking. Can mobile homes be a tax write-off?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Any so a tax write-off is an income producing property. So your first property, you can't write off anything but the interest. So because you're living in it, right? So we're not producing income and stuff. Our second property, so say that you buy this mobile home as an income producing property, then that one now can be wrote off against your taxes for 27 and a half years. So you basically take the amount that you have, divide it by 27 and a half, and every year that is what you're gonna pull off of your taxes. So easy way to think of this: $275,000 property, you will get $10,000 pulled off your taxes every year, which will save you about 2,500 to 3,500 depending on your tax bracket. So that is a benefit. One way to speed this up: cost segregation analysis. So if you want to get all this, or not all of it, but 80% of the tax write-off up front, this is what the rich people do. If you got a lot of income in one year and you're like, I'm not trying to pay none of this, what you do is you cost segregate your property. What a cost segregation analysis is, basically or simply, is they take the property, say it's $1 million property, just to make numbers easy. $1 million property, they take 20% off of it for land, right? So the land you can't cost segregate. The building you can, though. So say for instance, then they say, all right, $800,000 for the building, and then say you put $50,000 in it to fix it. So then they'll get that $850,000 number, right? And I'll do some math. So they're gonna go $850,000. They're gonna times it by 0.8, because you can only get 80% of the write-off in the first year. 20% you have to spread. So they'll times it by 0.8. That's $680,000 that'll come off of your taxes. Now, depends on where you're getting taxed, but most likely you're at least at 30%. So that's going to save you $204,000 in taxes. And that's why the rich use property to leverage and to get around taxes, because I can literally buy a property for maybe $200,000 and it's going to save me $206,000 in taxes. And I just gain the asset instead of giving it to the government. So that same money, that same 205,000 that I can just give to the government, I say, hell no. And I give it to myself as an asset. And then I don't give the government the money.
We're gonna hit that again because again, I know we're all over the place, but I kind of want to go back to the simple because we're gonna come back to this
Yeah.
taxes. I'm gonna ask more deep questions. I'm being selfish here. I'm gonna ask. This is for me, really. So next, Really quick. Now, let's say you already own the complex. Okay, let's jump forward a little bit. Let's say you already own a fourplex, because really, ideally, it's like, how do you leverage a FHA loan to get a multifamily? Because you're using the one-time offer to get a bigger asset, correct? If you
Yes.
qualify. Now, next, um, who? Let's say something breaks. If some, what did I say here? Oh, what happens if somebody leaves? Let's say you're living in one of them and there's 3 others. What happens if somebody, like, leaves early or something? Do you start absorbing that cost until you find somebody else really quick?
Yeah, yeah, that's how it is. Obviously, anybody that's renting understands deposits, right? So you got a security deposit that anybody puts on a property. So anytime somebody just leaves and breaks your rent, you can obviously take their security deposit. So hopefully you have a month
Oh,
to.
it covers like a month so you can get somebody else in there.
Yes.
All right.
So hopefully you can cover a month. This is the thing though, these properties should be making money, right? So one should be able to be vacant and you should still be able to make money on a quadplex at least, right? And
Really?
so, yeah, one should be about 30% margins. One should be able to be vacant and you still pay your bills. And so, if one of them's vacant, I have a quadplex right now. Two of them are vacant. One of them actually, you'll probably ask one of these questions, but I had an insurance claim that I had to do on one of them, and so one of them's vacant. One of them we're trying to rent out right now, and the thing still cash flows just with two of them. Obviously, it depends on when you bought it. I bought this quadplex in 2021, and so 3% interest, debt was cheaper, uh, rents raised. Now I'm in a good cushion spot where I could have half of it vacant and still profit off of it. Obviously, that's not what you want, but you can. When you get longevity under these properties, they become easier and easier to
They
cash
become
flow.
easier over time. So let's jump
Mhm.
into this. Check this example out. Are you able to see the gross rent right here at the bottom?
Total
Is it hard to see?
utilities. Oh, yep, yep, yep.
Okay, so this is why I was like, okay, well, how are you turning a profit here? Now, before I get there, we're gonna get back to this. I want to use this as an example and compare it, because obviously every area is gonna look different. This is from California, so maybe it's not as profitable because of
Mhm.
they keep it down. So maybe that's what it is. But number two, so let's say you do lose a person, you use the deposit to cover for that month. Who is marketing that unit? Are you doing it yourself, or are you paying somebody to do it, or do you have to market that unit yourself?
So there's a couple different ways. Obviously, I'm married to a realtor, so she markets my properties for me. But you could pay a realtor. They generally will want anywhere from about half month's rent to a full month's rent to rent it. So say that you rent it for 1,500 bucks a month. They're gonna want anywhere from 750 to 1,500 bucks to bring that tenant to you to rent it, right? And that's kind of a commission fee, kind of like you'd pay commission to a normal realtor. So you could do that. There are companies that property manage, right? So they're gonna take all the headache off your hands. They're gonna take I guess not all of it because you're still going to be the decision maker.
But
So, hey,
most
this
of it
pipe
but
bust.
most of it.
Yeah, a lot of the calls and stuff like that. You're still the decision maker. So they still come to you. Hey, this pipe busted. Are you going to fix it? Hey, the garbage disposal is broken. Are you going to fix it? Hey, do you want us to send these people? You're still going to be the one paying for it. You're still all this stuff. But they take the phone calls, the emails, the toilet, I'm about to break my lease. Like they take all the headache away from you. They're good at legality. So they're
Mhm.
good at, hey, on the 5th, a note goes out, you're late, you owe 50 extra dollars.
So you just deal with the capital, that's good, okay. So
Yep.
what if something
10%
breaks?
to 15% about
You
for those
you know
people.
how we're paying, insurance, or you're paying that monthly insurance on the property,
Mhm.
right? That's inside the mortgage. Well, what happens if, let's say, the dishwasher breaks? Is that coming straight out of pocket for you, or does the insurance you're paying cover a certain amount of that breakage?
So that will depend on your insurance coverage, but I could tell you
Okay.
with appliances, you're paying for appliances, you're paying for HVAC, you're paying for paint, you're paying for stuff like that. They pay for disasters. So I just had a disaster. I have a quadplex, a unit stacked, right? The plumbing stacked with the units. The unit down low is vacant. So we had a pipe bust in the bottom unit, flooded the whole bottom unit, right? So that the insurance pays is going to be about like $25,000 that they're going to pay to fix the quadplex space or fix the unit. Um, it messed up all the floors, cabinets, walls, all kinds of stuff that it's going to cost, right? So that's like a natural disaster, like not even a natural disaster, just a disaster. They pay for a lot of that stuff. Um, but most stuff that happens, you do pay for, because catastrophic stuff they do pay for. Most stuff you pay for. But this is the thing: you can get insurance for any of this. Here's a couple of things that I'll show you guys. Insurance, renter's insurance is a good one to make people carry. It's like $18 a month for the renter, but it covers them and covers partially you. And obviously, all these insurances are just what you pay for, but you can pay for or have them pay for like liabilities on yourself. And so you can have them pay for insurance where it covers them. Say a fire breaks out and they lose their bed and all their clothes and stuff. It covers them, but it also helps you get covered as well if they are neglecting your property.
Right.
So property insurance is one. Another thing that a dude told me whenever I bought my quadplex, which I didn't do it because I'm a little bit handy myself, but the dude, he has a bunch of quadplexes, and he says, I just pay for an insurance for my appliances. So what his insurance, he says it's something like, I don't know, $50 a month or something like that. But he says what they'll do is if an appliance breaks, it's $50 and they'll come out. And if they can't fix it, they'll replace it with the same model or newer for you. And so
This
they
is
do have a bunch of insurance for
is this the
property.
hold on, is this the renter's insurance or is this the
Hmm.
property owner's insurance? Property owner?
So there's a separate insurance that's like a appliance insurance. So appliance insurance is kind of the thing that goes. You just think about like water heaters, HVAC units, dishwashers, disposals, refrigerators. That's mainly what you're responsible for as a landlord, right?
Mhm.
So if
Oh,
you
so that's
pay
for
like
the owner. Okay, I see.
yeah, so if you pay like an insurance for that, like a special insurance, this is separate from renters. This is a different insurance, but you could pay for this separate insurance, and then your appliances are insured, so you never have to worry about it. If something happens, you call this number, $50, they go out, they'll fix whatever, or they'll replace whatever. And a lot of the issue is like a tenant will be like, my dishwasher doesn't work, and then you'll have to like go find somebody. It's a lot of legwork to like deal with it. Then you have to line it up with the tenant and see, all this shit. This thing is just a lot easier. It's just $50. You can even get it in your lease. So say how I got it in my lease, or how I would have it in my lease if I had this, is I would say, anything that happens to an appliance, you pay $50, we'll fix it. you know
Okay,
so
I
you
see.
could let's negotiate it in the lease where the tenant could even uphold that $50. And then it just is paid no matter what, because some tenants will try and just, it's not working again, 50 more bucks, it's not working again, 50 more bucks, and they'll take advantage of you. You know what I mean? So
Bro,
you
that
got to have
was me
a
when I was
contract.
renting. I was pissed because this dishwasher stopped working,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, "Yo, you guys got to get this fixed." And they're like, "Well,
Yep.
you need to make sure you're." It's like all this leveraging. Well, make sure you don't do this and you don't do this. And I was like, "Bro,
Mm-hmm.
I just want it to work. I don't want to have to do all that." But from their side, they're trying to cover themselves to make sure
Mm-hmm.
I know what I'm doing. So it's see, that's the kind of crap I don't want to deal with. So you just buy that insurance, like you said, 50
Mm-hmm.
bucks. You don't really deal with all the insider negotiate. You just, hey, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we replace it. It's already paid for, and it's just
Yep.
up to you whether you pay for that or not. Okay.
Yep.
Um. All right. So now let's kind of move. Or actually, do we have any more questions? Secondary mobile homes. Okay, we went over that. I want to jump over to. Oh yeah, yeah. Let's go to this cost or not cost analysis. I don't know how to. I don't know the terminology here, but
Mm.
let's take a look at this. Right. So at the top left hand, right. Actually, you know what? Can I? Let me bring this up because this is going to take too much work. Or you're not going to be able to identify it really good. Let's bring up, I'm going to bring this up really quick. And I want to see if, before we bring that up, I'm going to bring up this chart to go over kind of what the payments would look like to be a
Okay.
little more practical. And this might be this might not be the best example, but as I pick that up, I want you to explain sort of what a let me see, four ways of profit, cash out refi. Is that what it was? Let me make sure I get all the questions here. Yeah. So what is a cash out refi? I'm going to bring this out. What exactly is a cash out refi? Where are you? Is this a property you already own? Can you do that with the FHA, or does it have to be non-FHA? What is a cash out refi?
Excellent question, Jeremy. Cash out refi is when you have a mortgage and say that it goes up in value. Say that the property, we'll use my house. I bought a house in, I think it was 2019, 2018, something like that. I bought a house for $250,000. In 2 years, it was worth $400,000, right? Well, I bought the house and now I currently own about $210,000 on it. So if the property's worth $400,000, right? They'll give you 80% value of your property in a loan. If you already own your property or if it's already kind of mortgaged to you, they give you 80% value of it, right? So we'll go 400,000, we'll times it by 0.8 to get 80% value. That's $320,000. Now, if I own $210,000 on my loan, then I'm going to subtract 210 because I got to pay that off. Well, that leaves me with $110,000 of free liquid tax-free money. So basically, right now I wouldn't do it because what that would do is I would take my 3% loan and now I'd be paying 8% loan on it. So right now the refi market is dead. But when these say you buy it at 8%, right? And say in 3 years we're at 5%, then you can refinance and actually save money. You're refinancing your debt to the current debt wherever it's at. Right now it's higher than we have, so many people aren't refinancing. So you buy now, in 4 or 5 years the refinance market will be on fire if things go how we think and the interest drops. So the refi basically is to pull the money out of your property or to drop your payment. So if we buy a property right now 8%, and then in 3 years it drops, we'll refi to get the payments lower. But we can
Let me
also
get
refi to squeeze cash. Go for it,
let me
Jeremy.
get this. Yeah, let me get this straight. So the cash out refi could be for two primary things: to lower your own payment because you're refinancing the rates lower, or to just pull out cash to buy a new property or to buy another asset. Those are the two primary, correct? Okay.
100%.
Okay. Now the cash out refi, when is it optimal about to actually do it? Because if you bought a property, you've been in it for 6 months, does it make sense to is it a low like do you cash out refi or do you need to be in there for at least a year or two to cash out refi, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because doesn't your cash depend on how much equity you've already paid off?
Yeah, it depends on how much equity you currently have. So, um,
Because if you
you
buy it
know,
first month, can you do a cash out refi in the first month?
I think that you have to wait 6 months or 9 months.
Okay.
There's something on it where you have to wait a certain amount of time to cash out refi, right? But at the same time, people will cash out refi for different reasons, right? I cashed out
Yeah.
refi one of my loans to go from 30 to a 15-year loan, right? So that was a way that I cashed out refi, is to just change the parameters to current parameters, basically. But in the cash out refi, they'll give you 80% of the loan of your property. So they're not necessarily looking at what you have on another loan. They're just saying, "Hey, your house is worth 400,000. I'll give you 320." And so if you have $210,000 to pay off, then you have $110,000 cushion there that you can get. This is the biggest thing. It's
Oh.
tax-free
So
money.
hold on. Let me take a step back. So let's say it's $1 million house to make the numbers easy so people could
Yep.
calculate this, right? So let's say you lived in it for 6 months and you've acquired, let's say you lived it to 6 months and there's another situation where somebody's been in it for 5 years, right? So one
Mhm.
person, the guy that's in it for 5 years, can they pull out more equity because they've paid off more? Or you're saying it's the same that you pull out, It's just one person owes more than the other.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's the same you pull out. They'll only give you 80% of the house you own. So if it's worth a million, they're only going to give you $800,000 because they're
Okay.
making you keep skin in the game. They're making you keep that 20% skin in the game because they're not going to loan you 100% of your house and it
Right.
drops and then you give it back to them and now they own it. They make
Right.
you have 20% in it. But whenever your house appreciates, then you can gain the 20%. Even if you put 5%, even if you put 3%, when your house appreciates over time, you gain the equity in your house. Then all you'll do is you'll figure out what is my house worth, what is 80% of that, and then what is my debt. And then the difference of that is tax-free money. And the reason why I keep saying tax-free money is because taxed money, it would be like 150 to 200 grand. Hold on one second, Jeremy.
No, you're good. Before you get there, I'm gonna reel you back in again really quick because again you're going quick, and I know it makes sense in your head, so I'm gonna reverse
Right.
a little bit.
Slow
So
me down.
you have $1 million house, right? And let's say you've paid off,
Hold on. What did we buy it for? What did we buy the house for?
I guess, 1 million. I mean,
Okay.
I don't really know. What do you mean by buy it for? It's 1 million. You're paying 1 million on it. You didn't pay it off all the way, obviously. Let's say you got a FHA on it, right?
Right.
Let's say you did FHA, so you paid 35K,
Right.
right? Um, Now let's say you've paid 35K, you've been in it for 6 months, whatever the interest rate is, you've been in it for 6 months. That cash out refi, are you telling me, even though you've only been in it for 6 months, you can still get $800,000 of leverage out of that house, right? You can still get 800,000 of leverage out of that house. Is that what that is? What is the cash out refi? Because you're going quick. I'm trying to slow it
Yeah.
down.
No, you're fine, Jeremy. That's not necessarily what it is. So because it's $1 million and we only paid 35 grand, then we have debt on it that's gonna be $965,000, right?
Okay.
So they will cash you out, refinance you at 800,000, but you're still gonna owe 165,000. So you couldn't refinance because you'd be upside down. Does that make sense? So
Um,
what you would have to do is you would have to influx value into that property. So say if you're trying to do it in 6 months, that's what more like fix and flippers do, right?
okay.
So I'm gonna
Mhm.
buy this property, say it's $1 million property. I think I can make it worth 1.3, 1.4. I'm gonna paint it. I'm gonna, put 100 grand into it, and it's gonna be worth 1.4, right? And so then if you can elevate the property's value through influx of money or influx of like fixing it up like a fix and flip or time. That's what I did. I didn't fix it necessarily. It just time grew the asset, right? So if you can make it more worth more valuable, however you can make it more valuable, then you can cash out, refinance 80% of the value minus your debt. So on this one, it would be $800,000, but
Oh,
we have
minus the debt.
60. Yeah, minus your debt.
Okay.
But you
Okay.
have too much debt on that 6 month example. But if you were able to elevate the property and now it's worth 1.4 million, right? Then you would times it by zero point 0.8. So then that's 1.120, a million 120. And
Right.
then you would so that's 80%. Then we would pay down our debt. So we have 965 of debt. So minus 965 of debt, and that would leave us with 155 of money to pull out of it. So there's two
Okay.
ways to do it. You have to make the property worth more um in fixing it up, or time will do it, appreciate the property,
So
you know.
that was my question there. The person
Mhm.
who's paid off the house or who has people paying it off for 5 years because they're renting one, they rent out, they're gonna be able to pull more of that cash out than somebody who's been in it for 6 months
Yep.
because nothing has changed in the 6 months. Because 'cause you're taking, okay, $1 million, right? And let's say you paid 0 down to make it easy. You
Yeah,
paid 0 down, you have $1 million, you can take out 800%, I'm sorry, 80% of it, so you could take out 800,000, but now you minus the debt and you owe 1 million, so you have nothing.
exactly.
Okay,
So you don't want to do it right then.
but if the property appreciated to 1,200,000, you're even.
Exactly.
And then once it gets
100%.
to let's say 1.5 million, now you can pull out 300K.
You're right.
Okay,
And that
that's what I'm trying to figure out there. Okay.
mhm. And but
All
at
right.
the same time, when you're waiting that 5 years, we paid 1,000,000, we didn't put any down. But as that 5 years goes, we start depreciating, right? So 5 years from now, we're not gonna be at 1,000,000 in debt, we're gonna be at 950 in debt
'Cause you've
or
been paying
9
it oh, so time is okay, so how much is being put in equity or paid off on the debt also so what you pay into it almost comes back to you in a sense.
100%. So you're paying
Okay.
the tenant is paying the debt down.
Right,
The
okay.
the appreciation just makes it go. That creates the gap. How much debt do we have?
So
Minus the
in some sense, the more that you get tenants to pay off the debt, that what they're paying is ready for you to cash out to some degree as also the
Yep.
property goes up. Okay. So really time you could fix it up, but it's like, how many people are gonna go sit it's probably better if you're doing a fourplex. Get your
Let me show you a cheat code for this though, because
okay.
whenever you get into these fourplexes, whenever you get into commercial property, everything's
Yeah.
bought off of a cap rate. So nobody really cares what the property next to it may or like bought or what somebody 6 months ago paid for this property next to it. What they really care for is how much does this property produce in cash, right? So say for instance that we can look at rent rates, right? And say that
Okay.
we say $1,000 is a reasonable rent rate in this area we're buying a property, right?
Okay.
$1,000. So say that we see somebody renting this property out for 650 or 750. You
Mhm.
see what I'm talking about? But
Yeah.
they should be renting it for 1,000. They're
Right.
selling that property based off of a cap rate, which means that they're selling it based off of 750 numbers versus 1,000 numbers. So if you come in and you buy that property at 750, say that at 1,000 it would be $1,000,000 property, but at 750 it's $750,000 property, right? So we're gonna say, all right, we're gonna buy it at $750,000. If we can make these rents go to 1,000, it's now $1,000,000 property. That's cap rate for you. So you can, in a commercial loan, you can actually make it happen. You can force the property to produce, not necessarily force it, but if you catch somebody, what happens is people get old and lazy. So somebody will have this property for 30 years and they just have the same tenants in it for 8 years and they don't want to raise the rents on them. And it's just easy how it's going. And you know, they don't even know that prices have went up $300 in the last 2 years. You know what I mean? And they're just kind of setting on themselves. Just yeah, you know, I bought this in the '80s and it's paid for, cash flow, and I don't care what I make off of it. You know,
Right, right.
and then you can buy that property off of that lazy manager and just make it worth what it's worth. And then
Because of the surrounding values of the same value, right? They're higher.
because of the rent, it's all
Okay, the
about the
rent.
rent.
Well, now hold
Mhm.
on, let's take a step back. What the hell is cap rate? I know it's like we don't need
Okay.
the perfect definition, but
Yep.
explain what a cap rate is, and then let's factor that into an example. So what exactly is a cap rate?
A cap rate, basically, if we bought the property with cash and subtracted expenses from the property, how much, what percentage of my money is coming back is the cap rate. So, say that I bought this property for $1,000,000 and minus expenses, $60,000 comes back in profits, right?
Per
That's a
month?
six
Or what are we saying? Per month or per
a
year?
year, a year. Yep.
Okay.
So say that you buy the property outright, no debt, $1,000,000, right?
All
And then
cash.
all cash, yep.
Okay,
And then
okay.
you subtract all the expenses from it, and
Yeah,
after you extract all the expenses from it, it still produces 60,000 a year, right?
okay. Mhm.
So that would be a 6% cap rate. It should be easy for you guys to understand because it's similar to like yields, right? How
Oh,
much am
okay,
I
okay,
yielding off of this is a cap rate. So I
right,
got $1,000,000, it gets me $60,000 a year in cash. That's a
okay,
6% cap rate. Well,
right.
let's say that somebody their cap rate, they're doing it off 6%, but instead of making it worth what it's currently worth, say $1,000 a month, they're actually devaluing it about 25%. So say at $1,000 a month, you can sell it for $1,000,000 at a 6% cap rate. But with their current numbers, it's worth $750,000 as a cap rate, right? Because they're $750 a month, $750,000 it's worth. $1,000 a month, $1,000,000 is it's worth. It's because it's sold off of cap rate. It's not necessarily sold off of what the neighbor next to me sold it for. It's
Okay.
basically
So hold on.
off of
Don't you're losing me. I got lost
okay.
a little bit. So cap rate isn't necessarily something the bank sets. It's kind of how the
Mm,
market it's the dynamics between how much the market is selling for and how much the property is yielding.
yes. It's
Okay.
basically this property produces X amount of profit, and I will sell it at a 6% cap rate. And that's normal. 6% cap rate's normal. Better cap rates are 7.5, 8.
Now,
Worst
how
cap
does that
rates,
hold on,
5.
how does that go? Like, if you're going to buy a property, are you looking for a higher or lower cap rate? You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out because it's probably
Yeah,
different if you're selling
you want
versus you're
higher
buying.
because it's just like this. If you're buying a stock, do you want higher or lower yield?
Oh, you wanna buy a property with a higher cap rate because there's more room to yield off of it. If the cap rate is 0, basically you're paying
It breaks even.
you're break even. Like
Mhm.
basically everybody's selling for 1,000 in rent. Well, you're gonna buy it at 1,000 in rent. So you're basically just yielding what everybody else is. But if the cap rate is 50%, like this is just to make these numbers easy. If the cap rate is 50%, I don't even know if that makes sense. But so what happens is, okay, now you come in and buy that property and you have room, you have a 50% room to increase price rents. Therefore, you increase your income on it, right? Does that kind of make
You're thinking about it too much. Dumb it all the way down to I'm gonna buy $1,000,000 in stock. It
okay?
yields me $60,000 profit.
6%. 6%. Okay.
6%. That's a
Okay.
6% cap rate.
All right.
So if I buy $1,000,000 property after expenses, it gets me $60,000. That's a 6% cap rate. A CD has about a 5% cap rate right now, right? Because I could
Oh,
put
okay.
$100,000 in
All
it.
right. It's a
It's
yield.
just the rate of return on your money is what cap rate is in mortgage, but it's a little bit different because you have to find out the numbers. So you have to figure out like what's utilities, what's are we gonna pay for trash? There's different stuff. So you
So
got to figure out.
you're looking for a higher cap rate when you do buy a
Mhm,
fourplex, basically. But there I'm
yep.
guessing there's a downside because a lot of times a higher cap rate might mean it's damaged in the inside or something. So you got to inspect that too. Is that does that make sense or no?
It could be a higher cap rate means that the person wants to sell it more
Okay,
because
okay. So they're
it'll
desperate to get
sell
rid of it.
it'll sell at 6% cap rate if you just sit on it. Because a REIT company, do you know what a REIT company is? It's a
No,
real estate investment
trust.
trust
Yeah,
company,
I
right?
know what the stock is, but I don't know what a REIT company
Right.
is.
So a
Okay,
REIT company, what they do is they take everybody's money. You give them 50,000, I give them 50,000. They take everybody's money. They're gonna go buy these commercial properties. Basically, these commercial properties produce a cap rate. These companies don't want to be like guessing. They want to make for sure a cap rate. So they're not like
okay,
guessing on cap rate. They know cap rate. So they're wanting to buy it at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 50. You know what I mean? But nothing
right.
gets that high. It gets to about 6 to 11% cap rate is about as high as I've seen it. And then that basically means, hey, at $1,000,000, I can make $60,000 every year, just how it is right now, without
Okay,
without touching it at all. If I invest $1,000,000, I get 60,000 of it. Obviously, we got the appreciation. Obviously, we could write it off on taxes. Obviously, there's the other gains to it, but the cap rate basically on commercial real estate or multifamily is basically if I elevate the rents, the property elevates with it. So if I can make that rent go 25% more, I literally just influx 25% more value in the property, and I didn't paint it or nothing. I just put a different tenant in it that's willing to pay more for it. So now this property cash flows more money and I can sell it to an investor for more because 6% is more whenever I do $1,000 on a quadplex versus 750 on a
so
quadplex.
if somebody hold on, now let's say if somebody wanted to come and buy your property and you increase the rents,
Mhm.
doesn't that mean they're buying a lower cap rate?
It means that they if we keep the price the same, they're buying a higher cap rate. but that's what sets the market. The market isn't necessarily set by what this property sold for last week. The market is set for on REIT companies. So it's basically set at a cap rate. So the market isn't like, it's not the same as like buying a house where this house sold 4 bedroom, 3 bathroom for this much. A quadplex can go for different prices, even if they're the exact same thing, just because that one rents for more, one rents for less. And that alone almost dictates what it's worth.
Okay, I see. I see. And I don't know if you know what I'm getting at, but what I'm getting at here is usually a higher cap rate means somebody's trying to get rid of that property. They want to go liquid. They want more cash.
Yep.
Um, is there, I'm guessing there's cases where the cap rate is much lower because they're yielding off of it more. So they're not trying to get rid of it. They're trying to use it for more income. Do you see what I'm saying? What I'm looking at is if you go buy a property and the cap rate is 6%, let's say it's a million, you're getting 60 million a month. Well, you increase the rents to from let's say you increase the rents. Now your cap rate, well, I don't want to, is it a cap rate? You increase the rents now. And I don't know, this is where I'm kind of confused. You increase the rents. So instead of getting 60,000, let's say you're getting 100,000, right? Because that's kind of the example,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So is that cap rate now 10%?
It would if you sold it at the same price, but that's what we don't do. We elevate the price to
Oh,
make
so the
it
cap rate's the
6%.
same. The cap rate stays the same,
Yeah,
but
you
it's just
want it
yielding more.
6%.
Oh, okay. I
You
see. I
just
see.
make
Okay,
that
there we go.
property go up more. So say that you
Right.
bought it for $750,000 and it's yielding
Yeah.
6%, but we just
Uh-huh.
put 25% extra on rents. So now it's up here at $1 million. And so the cap rate, we're not going to sell it at 750, or else you're right. It would be like a 10% cap rate. We're elevating the price of it. We're selling it at
Right.
a million to match the
I
6%
see.
cap
So
rate.
there's the advantage then. So the cap rate, because
Yep.
I didn't know what cap rate was. So cap rate is
Yeah.
basically just the average yield on a property percentage wise. And it also tells you, okay, well, your advantage is if the cap rate's at 6%, you have now the ability to raise the value of, because the homes around you, they're probably, you're saying always get a 6% cap rate. Try to get a 6% cap rate where the rents are on a property where the rents are lower than the surrounding rents, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how you can, you know how you were saying 6-month refinance?
Yeah.
That's how you 6-month refinance. If you can force the equity into it just by renting it to different terms, then
Uh-huh.
it forces it to be worth more. And the bank will look at it off that 1.25, right? So say
Yeah.
that we're at, the 3,000, $750 times 4 would be $3,000, versus if we elevate it to 1,000 times 4, that would be 4,000, right?
Mhm.
So we just basically influx 25% more value into the
Into that
quadplex
property. Okay.
based on just renting it differently. Then I can go
Okay.
back to the bank, cash out refinance, because I made it worth more money because I rented
Right.
it
You
better
found a
than
better deal. You
I
found a
found
good
a better
deal.
deal. Somebody willing
So
to rent it,
so so this goes into strategy a little bit, which is if you're looking for if you're doing a FHA and you're doing, because I'm being this very specific, if I'm looking at this very
Mhm.
specific, if you're doing an FHA, you're looking at a duplex or a threeplex or a quadplex, you want to strategize to find a property that's renting lower than the surrounding rates so that you could bring those rents up to the surrounding rent, average rent. Therefore, you influxed value into the property right away, really quick. Now you can
Yep.
cash. Now it's you don't need to cash refinance right away, but you collected, you made a spread, you made the spread, like you closed the spread, so that's what you've made, and you can use that as debt going forward. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So that's the
Yes.
strategy: is make sure you find a property that is actually. Now, what are the chances of that though? Is it hard to find a property that's renting lower?
Oh, you want to jump into it?
Yeah, let's jump into it. Let me look at, we've been on for 140. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the likes buttons if you appreciate the content. I'm a newbie, so I'm over here asking questions. I'm gonna run to the restroom real quick. Before we jump into that, let me see ticker media. So when you are talking to lender to do cash out refi, they will do a new appraisal of the property. Okay, I see I think I know what he's saying. When you do the cash out refi, do they need to go back and appraise the property again? Or is it just the value? Oh, they do. You do.
So there's a couple of ways. I've had lenders that need because I've even tried to pull PMI off. It's mortgage insurance is what it is, property mortgage insurance. So whenever you pull PMI off, you need to get it. Some lenders make you refinance it, or not refinance it, reappraise it. So you could be right if you're dealing with the lender. Some of them will make you reappraise it and make it basically prove that you put that much into it, or prove it. Other places will just actually do like an appraisal analysis on it, where they'll look at it as based on, like I'm saying, this company or this property down the street sold for 400,000, 4 bedroom, 3 bath. So your 4 bedroom, 3 bath is probably close to 400,000. So sometimes they will make you appraise it to get the cash out refinance, and sometimes they're depends on the lender. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes they're just going to be like, hey, the cash out refinance based on the numbers in your area, based off what everything else sells around you, you proven it already, or we're satisfied with the proof of it. But I've done this twice where I've had to refinance. One time they did make me do a new appraisal. So I got an appraisal company that they have approved to come out and do the appraisal. And then the second way, I didn't. I basically they basically just believed me, or not necessarily believe me, but they just were like, let me run the numbers off of what stuff sold next to it, and then you're right, it is worth what you're saying it's worth. Oh, sorry.
Okay, cool. So this is a live. So this is literally how you would look for a good deal then right here.
Yeah, man. So I'm gonna get you guys right on Zillow right here, and I'm gonna go to Jeremy's neighborhood. Boom, Phoenix. I just did this earlier, so I could figure it out. So what we're gonna do right here is we're gonna remove our boundary. This will give us like kind of all of not just Phoenix, but Scottsdale. They'll give us kind of the surrounding areas. Jeremy, without giving out too much information, you live close to Scottsdale?
No, I live more. I'm more West Phoenix. I'm more West Phoenix, but I'm actually looking at Tempe. It really doesn't matter anywhere.
Okay. I
Are
got
you
pepper
looking for
spray.
where? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go to. I'm actually looking at North Phoenix. Let's go north. It's like the safest. I don't want to be in a crime-ridden area. But I'm
Okay, so
West
like
Phoenix right now, and I want to go to North Phoenix. Let's say I want to go
so this
North
area?
Phoenix. Yeah, somewhere right there. All that north, or
Okay.
yeah, because there's too many ghettos in Phoenix. I'm like, hell no.
I understand, man. So then we're gonna go down here. Home type. No, why this isn't letting me. Oh, this is for rent is why. I'm gonna go for sale first. All right, so now let's click off everything but multifamily. We're gonna try and buy a multifamily home that makes sense with a FHA loan. So we'll apply these, and these are gonna basically be stuff in Phoenix that we can buy. And this is gonna be multifamily because we've done our search to it. So I pulled up a couple of these ones over here earlier because they're pretty easy examples. So this one will be 4 bedroom, 2 bath. And let's look at how we can analyze these properties, right? Where it's going to be a 4 bedroom, 2 bath, 2,000 square foot. This is going to be our price that we have. We're going to see it's 21 days on Zillow. We're going to keep scrolling down. This is what we're going to look at, price history. Let's look at whenever stuff is happening. So this one, the reason why I wanted to bring this one up for you guys is because this one would be an easier property to sell or to buy because of the times we're in. Right now, you can see right here, they bought this thing 8/29/2023 for $650,000. To me, this has to be a fix and flip, or somebody's can't afford this property. So I'm going to go all the way up and I'm going to look and see if I could figure out any things that I could figure out that they did to this property. This well-maintenance, fully renovated triplex rental property features 2-bedroom, 1-bath units, or 2 1-bedroom units and 1 2-bedroom unit. So that's going to show us right there. Okay, 2 1-bedroom units, 1 2-bedroom unit. So we have to figure out what everything rents around this area as a 1-bedroom and as a 2-bedroom to figure out what this property
Yield.
actually produces. Yeah, what it yield, and they'll understand what it yields already, but we want to know, are they undervaluing it? Are they overvaluing it? And kind of some of the stuff that we just talked about. So you can see they renovated the triplex, which most likely means they painted it, to be honest. There could have been some light work that they would have done in it, but most likely they would just painted it. They got 2 pictures here. They're never sell this thing with 2 pictures up. So we can see on this listing that we already got some benefits to it, say, right? That is probably a stressed property. They probably put some money in it. It might not rent for what it is because of interest rates, right? So if we can go to our mortgage calculator, 8975. And this, guys, I'm putting in mortgage calculator into Google and it pops it up. You want to click this button right here to include your fees.
I think take off 10.
Okay. Okay. Then we're going to do 3.5% interest because we're FHA, right?
Right.
So that's going to show us our down payment right here. We're going to live in one of these units, so we'll figure out which one that is and what we can afford for the rent. The interest rate's going to pop up automatically. Most of the time, if you put this 3.5%, it might go vacant, but then just put 20% in here. It'll show you what your interest rate is currently for today with the loan that you're trying to kind of get. Google kind of tries to help you out a little bit on it, right? You can put your credit score in right here and stuff like that, but I don't worry about that. The one thing that I wanted to show you guys is whenever I did this thing first, this number was like $11,000, right? So it was saying like, oh, it's going to be 11,000 in property tax, home insurance is 31.
Do you need to change the state? I'm sorry, the state says Colorado. Maybe that will change it. No.
And it could, but let me show you how to get it. This is how you get the number. So you'll go right here, public tax history. This is the number that you're going to pay in property taxes. It's not going to be.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what exactly, like, it's always too high. Even whenever I look, all the time it's too high, and it makes it look like the numbers don't work and all this stuff. But it's not 11,000. It's 811. So we're going to change this number to what it is. I usually just leave the home insurance like it is because it'll kind of populate a number based on your area. So I just leave it. Property mortgage insurance. This is if you don't have 20% down, the bank is going to make you do a mortgage insurance. This is another reason why you refinance, to get that number off. Because if you refinance, if your house appraises for 20% more than you bought it for, you could refinance and pull that number off. That number doesn't go to interest or principal. It's actually a insurance that is for the lender. So it's nothing for you. You want to get it off as soon as you possibly can. So that's that. HOA, it'll tell you if there's an HOA. Most likely on a quadplex, there's not going to be a HOA. Sometimes there could be. Houses, sometimes they do have $100 HOA monthly or whatever, so this one doesn't. So this is how these numbers are going to break down. They're going to be about $7,100 that we're going to be able to buy this thing for, based on what they want for it. Based on this number right here, that's what we can buy it for. So what we're going to do is we're going to back out of this search, and we're going to be in the same area, but instead of for sale, we're going to have everything the same. We're going to go to for rent, and we're going to apply that. And these are all the units that are for rent currently around this area. So let's go into some of these. So you'll see there'll be variety. This is what I'm talking about right here, Jeremy. This one's $1,000. Right down the street, they got one at 1.4. Right down the street, they got one at 1.7. Right down the street, they got one at 1.2. Obviously, each one of these, you can see this one's small kitchen, kind of older, wider appliances. Let's see the 1.4. Nicer, a little bit open, more open kitchen, got nice tile on it, a little bit nicer appliances. Let's see the 1.2. Oh, that looks like a apartment unit. 1.7. Really nice, probably got some quartz countertops and better appliances. So this is what we're looking at. You can see that this one's a 1.7 or $1,700 rent, 2-bedroom, 1-bath. We would like to see the inside of this property, and we can look at other ones as well. But just getting a glance at this, you can start figuring out in this area, if something's rented for $1,000, I bet you I can make it 14 or 13. In this area, if something's rented for $1,000, I bet you I can make it 14 or 12 or 17, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this area, looks like a little higher. I bet you if this one's 1.6, maybe I can go to 3. And you got to look at these numbers, obviously. 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath. That'll add a little bit, have an extra half bath on that one. So there are different varieties of stuff. This is 3-bedroom, 3-bath. So that'll be a bigger townhome. So there are varieties on this, but I'm just trying to show you guys exactly how I'm getting these numbers and how I'm actually figuring out what I can rent what for, and how I can figure out what properties are lower on the rent totem, and maybe I can elevate the rent to match a different property. Does that make sense, Jeremy?
Yeah, but do you want to stay away from apartments because apartments are going to rent differently than a single family home, or does it matter? Or is it the same? You know what I'm saying? Because like
Apartments,
apartments,
what you gotta deal with the apartments are going to be high HOA fees. So you're basically going to have where it's going to look like a deal. Oh, this is 50, 60, $70,000 cheaper than the quadplex down the road or the duplex, right? But you're going to run into the HOA is $500 a month or something
and
like that.
what I'm saying is like here in Phoenix, it actually costs. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, what I'm saying is here in Phoenix, it actually costs a lot less to rent a home than it does to rent an apartment.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if
That's why
that's
the HOA.
Oh, okay. So you're paying high HOA for the apartment. Okay, I see.
The HOA for the apartment, and I'm not sure you're probably trying to rent like a nicer apartment with a gym in it,
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
And so any of those amenities are going to add to it, and that's the HOA fees that you add to live in a spot where I don't have to pay for a gym membership, and it's downstairs, and I don't have to get in my car, and it does have a free breakfast, and it does have a pool. You know what I mean? So you're paying for all this upkeep of stuff that it would cost you more in a house to do yourself.
So you don't want to compare yourself to a nice apartment. You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to bring it up to that," because that's different, right?
Yep. You want to
Okay.
compare kind of level. And like
All
I'm
right.
saying, if you dig into these things, every single place will have these that somebody's owned it for 30 years, for 20 years, for 15 years, and have their prices at 2018 prices. And they just don't know that rent has went up in the last 5 years, and they have a tenant that they really like, been in there for 6, 7, 8 years, and they just are
They
gonna
don't want to deal. They don't want to deal with like, oh, they might move out and a new
relisting.
tenant. Okay,
Yep.
relisting. Okay,
And
I
then,
see. I
you
see.
gotta clean it and all this stuff, so it's like, "Hey, I'll just give them
I'll
a
just keep
discount
it.
just to stay and not
Right.
deal with the headache of it." And a lot
Okay.
of I think that I have a stat, it's 43% of properties are outright owned, by Americans. So, they don't have any debt on them. So those, a lot of those are gonna be the baby boomer generation, and a lot of their kids ain't gonna be set up to want to deal with it, and they
Yeah.
would rather give me $1 million versus, $5,000 a month for the rest of my life. And so those ones are the ones that you want to get that are undervalued, rented, but you think based on the area around there, you can add value for renting it for higher, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so like I said, we could go through whichever ones of these, but some of these stuff will get into big numbers, especially in Scottsdale and stuff like that, obviously.
You know what? Let's go to my neighborhood. I want you to go to Goodyear. Zoom out a little bit. Because I don't really know how things change over there. Go to your left. Go to West Phoenix. Okay. You see that where it says keep going. See Goodyear at the bottom left?
Okay, yeah.
That's where I'm at. I'm basically in the Goodyear, Litchfield area. I'm right here. I'm renting, but I always see rental houses up for like, and I don't know if they have a lot of quadplex and fourplexes around here. So is that
Right.
another thing, like location? I'm thinking maybe Tempe, and I know I'm jumping around, but Tempe maybe has more multifamily because there's a bunch of college students over there. I don't know.
Right. And I could watch, I'll put on this multifamily just where we could look at these two. Let's see what these ones are. This one's a good one. 7-bedroom, 2-bath. That would probably be a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 4-bedroom, 1-bath, something like that. Which they could have their numbers wrong on here too. Damn, that's a good one too. The higher the price, realistically, the easier it is to buy. Because you have less competition on it, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy how like you can get better deals if you have more money. This one's actually an awesome one, dude. Let me see what it is. You see how they dropped it 50,000?
Yeah. So they're trying to get rid of it possibly.
Yep. And so this is what I almost always go to right away is I'll go to this. They're definitely trying to get rid of this one. So this is what happened. They bought it in 2022, right? What was in
Ooh,
2022?
the top of the
Really
market.
top of the fucking market, right? Ain't nobody gonna buy it for higher than that, right? So
Right.
they're like, hey, I watched, a Tanner Max podcast and he said buy a fucking quadplex, right? And then, oh shit, the market turned.
Right.
I bought it in 2022. Maybe I made 6 months. Oh shit, a year later, hey, we need to get rid of this thing. Let's try and sell it for a profit though. You know what I mean? I've done the
Yep.
same thing, dude. I've done the exact same thing as this. Let's sell it for a profit. I fixed and flipped the property like this. I still own because I can't get rid of it. Okay, so let me fix and flip this thing. All right, well, put a $50,000 in it. Maybe I'm in at 900. All right, we'll put it at $1 million because I got to pay 6% fees for agents and stuff, right? So put it at $1 million, we'll make a little bit of money. Nope. In 1 month, I bet you they didn't even get somebody to call them. And then they're gonna say, "Hey, drop that shit 10%, to $10,000." I bet you they didn't even get a phone call because I've done this, almost in the same exact time. Okay, so then you come, all right, let's drop it again. Don't even get a phone call. So this is what ends up happening is they have a price point that they could sell this at. It's probably somewhere close to this, right?
Yeah.
And they're willing most likely to get out from under this. And if you know how to negotiate, what you do is you come to this person and say, "Look, dude, the bank won't even loan me this damn thing at 925, you know?
Yeah.
But what I can do is I can will and deal with you and blah blah blah, right? You can assume his mortgage, which I don't want to get too advanced for you guys. It's called subject to, but you can assume his mortgage, and just hey, I'll assume your mortgage, and there's legal paperwork. So if you guys want to know how to do that, you could contact me. But basically, this price will keep dropping because there's no buyers. And let me show you, like, kind of on that. You know how I was telling you guys about cap rate?
Yeah.
Cap rate, the reason why I don't invest in properties right now is because of cap rate, and it's because of what I can get elsewhere. So if the cap rate is 6%, but I can park my money in a CD for 5%, and I don't even got to deal with a tenant, and I don't got to deal with the headache of buying the property, and I don't got to deal with, the
Mm-hmm.
risk and all the stuff, it's 100% CD, then I'm putting all my money in the CDs right now. Once them CDs come down 4, 3%, something like that, I'm pulling my money and I'm going to buy properties. But until them prices come down for the CDs, the investors aren't buying unless it's super high cap rate, right?
Right.
So if we're, coming into this and we're like, hey, I'm trying to get an investment property, I'm trying to get a property for me to live in, I'm trying to, get the depreciation of the my taxes, I want to get the appreciation of the property, I want to make money these four ways. You get to a property like this and you just negotiate because you make the money on this sale, and you
What would
say,
be
hey,
the cap rate on this? Do we take that 925 and then we look at the rent, how much it's renting for
yeah, so sometimes they don't put what it's renting for.
at the top?
But
No. Oh, I see. It just shows you. Okay, no, I see. It doesn't tell you. Okay. So this is where you
yeah,
have to find the rents around it.
yep. And this one, that's the same thing. So you would go back, we'd just look in the same spot, go to for rent, apply it, zoom down. You could see stuff going for 1.9. Let's see what that looks like. 3-bedroom, 2-bath. That'll be close to what that one is. Let's say 1.3. Let's look at that. 2-bedroom, 1-bath. That'll be smaller than what this one is. Let's see, 2,000. I bet you the rent would be about like 1.8 or something.
Okay,
A
let's go
unit.
with that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if we go, and these are fast numbers, so don't hate me.
Oh, you're
But
good.
so if we can get 1.8, and I'm trying to figure out what this one is. Whoa, dude. Me and you gonna have to talk about this one later. 5 units, dude. 5 units on this thing. And we could maybe go from 2 bedrooms and 3 1-bedrooms. So the 2 bedrooms will be rented out for more like, let's look at 2-bedroom versus 1-bedroom. 1-bedrooms will be 1,100. 1,100. A lot of these are 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom even. I bet you this would be a good one to buy this property. 900. You could see everything around it is renting for higher. You might have some like downgrades in it where you might have to upgrade it to do it. This would be another one. 1-bedroom though. So say that we could rent $1,100 for a 1-bedroom, and say that we could rent let's say 1,400 bed for a 2-bedroom, right? So that's going to
Right.
set our numbers. Let me do this math real quick so I could get us. And then plus 28. So that'd be $5,000 a month we can buy this thing for, right?
Mhm.
925 is what he wants. Now, if we could rent this thing, and like I said, you got to make sure that these numbers are correct. But if we could rent this thing for 5,000, how upside down is this dude on payments right now? Who's gonna lose $2,300 to buy this thing?
So I see. So he has to pay about 7,300 just to keep it, but he's only earning 5,000, so he's losing.
He might have got this at a better rate. Does that make sense? So say
Yeah,
he
but
got it at 6%, but he's at 6,400. So he's not even breaking even, most likely. He's losing money on this property, right?
yeah, right.
So we're gonna get it at 7.5%, and it's gonna cost us $7,300. So as an investor, who's gonna buy this for 925 if it only makes 5,000 a month?
No one.
Nobody will, right? Nobody loses money, especially investors, dude. Maybe dumb people, people buying their first shit gonna lose money. No investor buys shit like this, right?
Right.
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna say, well, what do we have to buy it at? 650 ain't even getting the job done.
To make a profit, right?
Yeah. 550, you would
Damn.
make $700,000. This is why people are in such shit right now with their mortgage, is because everybody has 3% rates, right?
Right.
So nobody's gonna upgrade a let me show you what this number does. What do you want? 975?
Yeah.
Something like that. If we just went 3%, the thing jumps $2,500 down. You see what I mean? So he would
Yeah.
have been more at this range thinking he can grow it, right?
Mhm.
But he realizes, oh shit, like times have kind of changed. And so anybody that's at 7.5, all you have to do is run numbers and say, look, dude, I'd love to buy your stuff, but I can't afford it right now. You're going to have to help me out somehow. Maybe you can pay my rate down. Maybe you can drop the price of the property, right?
Mhm.
Maybe you can put something into the property to make it worth more. Maybe there's the willing and dealing that gets done at this rate, but you can see why the properties are sitting so long is because they're all upside down right now. This is the hard part, as for me as an investor, is it's like I want to buy properties, but all of them are upside down. I can make like $500, but I'm not spending hundreds of $1,000s to make a $500 drip. I
Right.
want to spend a bunch of money to make a bunch of money, right? And
Mhm.
every investor is in that same spot. So if we understand how it works, if we understand um the temperature of the water right now, right? And we understand everybody is kind of held up with selling or buying. And then we can look at these stressed properties just like this one, just like this one. This is exactly what you're trying to look for. This is stress. This is like,
Wow.
holy shit, get rid of this fucking property. If somebody just would offer me anything for it, I'll give it to them.
Yeah.
So when you see price drop, price drop, price drop, price drop, then you'll start seeing, oh, this one, the last one we seen, he bought it 3 months ago and trying to sell it right now. That's a fix and flip. He's gonna be upside down on that. He bought it wrong and he's gonna sell it wrong. And I think that for me, it's more of how long can people hold their breaths until the rates come down. Some people are tapping out right now, right? Some people are like, hey, I can't hold it anymore. This is as long as I can go. Tap out, right? Some people might can go another year and hold out. And hey, I'm gonna wait for the interest to come down. Then the market's gonna light on fire, right?
Mhm.
Depends on the seller, but let's say that 20% of homes and growing every month are going to be stressed. 20% of them are going to be behind on taxes. 20% of them are going to be behind on payments. 20% of them are going to be not managed properly. 20% of them are people that saw a YouTube video and then bought a quadplex, right?
Mhm.
20% of them are going to be stressed. And I'm going low. I bet you it's more like 30 to 40% are probably stressed right now. But as time goes on and these rates don't drop, and I'm not talking drop 0.25%, I'm talking drop 2-3%, then people are going to be upside down on these loans. What does it mean for us? It means that we can get better deals on these loans. And then hopefully in 2 to 3 years, when the price or when the interest drops, then we can refinance, maybe squeeze some money out of the property, but drop our payment as well and become more cash rich. Because if you can cash flow a property at 8%, you can cash flow a property at 3%. And so and not like it'll get to 3%, let's say 5%, because when it pulls off that weight of the 8% loan, you will gain more cash flow. It's why I can have two of my rent units empty in my quadplex and it can still cash flow. It's because I bought it correctly. I bought it high price but low interest. And so the
Mm.
numbers still work for me.
Damn, so this is just a shitty market.
Shitty market, dude. But I'm telling you, investors like me, they're not putting their money in this right now. And so just think of how stressed these people are that are trying to sell this. I had a property for sale that I did a fix and flip. I had it for sale. We tried to sell it for, I want to say like 3.5 or 4 months. I ended up just renting it for break even money just because I have to do something with it, you know? If I literally have it on sale for 4 months and not just one person called me in 4 months and I kept dropping the price just like this guy is, you end up starting to be like, "Dang, man, what do I really have to do to get rid of this property or cash flow this property?" And a lot of people, I'm in a blessed position because I can fund some of it to to get it to a spot where I can rent it, right? Some
Right.
people can't hold their breath for that long. Some people are going to be tapping out right now and being like, "Hey, look, it was a bad idea. Let's just cut our losses," you know?
Hey, so I want you to check this out. This is again that example because I don't really know the cash flow. Maybe I'm looking at the market and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is all you can do. This example right here, it's a 4 unit. Okay. Oh wait, I was gonna pull this up on the side. My bad. So we can
Oh, you're
actually
fine.
look at it. Let me pull this up on the side. Here it is. So I can put my finger on it. Okay. So it's a 4 unit, right? Each unit is renting for 2,500. Let's say I live in one of them. So I'm getting 7,500, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, it's 800,000. This is, I think, is this California? This is just an example. Down payment, FHA, right?
Yep.
Loan amount 7.7, blah blah blah. Interest rate 7. This is probably what's killing the cash flow. Then this is killing the drip, right? That
Yes.
you called about because at the end of the day, the total payment is about 69, right? 6,900,
Right.
and you're not really cash flowing because you're still paying this 70. You're paying this 2,500 to live in it, so you're really making about 600 bucks, 500 bucks, right? Are you
Yep.
even making that much? Yeah. So is that even enough? Is that too small of a cash flow to really jump in this?
It would be too small of a cash flow, but I would count my profits as into the number. Does that make sense? So what I
But if
paid to
you're
the
paying
property.
it, what I'm saying is I live in it, this unit.
Mhm.
So I'm not, what do you mean by count it? If I'm not actually making it because I have to pay this.
So you're paying it, but like I said, it's not just going to like interest, right? So it's going to part of it's going to be a rent, like an income. You wanna pay yourself because you want your LLC that buys this property to profit, so you could do it again next year. Does that make sense?
Oh,
So
okay.
you pay your LLC even though you're paying yourself. You pay your LLC the 2,500.
Hmm.
And like I said, that would be going into 4 different places. So it would be going, or not 4 different places, but it goes to pay off your debt. It does go to interest, so it goes to principal, interest. But then you get profit off of it, right? And
Right.
so I would pay it just like I'm a regular tenant and I'm treating the business like I'm a tenant of the business as well. And so I would pay it, and then you keep those numbers into the cash flow, because even though you're paying it, you would still have to pay it anyways. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
wherever you're
Yeah.
gonna rent, you're gonna pay 2,500 bucks. That's paying it to nothing. You know what I mean?
So
That's
your
paying it
your
to
hope
something.
is your hope is eventually this rate falls and now you start falling into cash flow because it's going to fall eventually.
And then your hope is that that falls. Your hope is also that the asset appreciates. Your also
Hmm.
hope is that when it appreciates, that the rent raises, and then
Okay.
you hope that you can depreciate the asset, or you can depreciate the asset over time. And so this is actually an awesome example for people to understand. He's talking about these are the gross rents at the bottom, those are units. And he's saying that these, produce $2,500, which is hell of a rent. I mean, that's really good rent to produce from a quadplex. And then if you can do that and it only costs 800,000, it would check out. The issue with this is that listing price for something to be renting that high, it would be like 2 million. And
Oh
that's
shit.
why
Okay.
everything is upside down, is
Right.
because
This is
people think
ridiculous.
people are still pricing their assets. If it's 3%, they still
Yeah.
think their assets are worth that, and they're just not right now. If you
Right.
need to sell your asset, it's not worth that, because we can easily produce numbers to show you we're upside down on every property unless they will and deal with us.
Okay, that makes sense. I see. All right, so let's jump in another part. That was good. Hey, appreciate it, man. That's good. That makes more sense. Now I kind of see the process a little bit. I
Yeah,
mean, do I know what I'm doing? Hell no. I'm probably gonna call you anyway, but
yeah,
that makes
definitely.
sense. Okay, so next I wanted to ask, and hey,
Let's get
shout out
some
to you, man.
comments.
You said what?
Let's get some comments.
Oh yeah, do you guys got any questions about that? I know that was long. That was a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'm
I wanted
sorry,
to
guys.
ask.
I'm terrible.
No, you're good. I wanted to ask too. Let me see if I get to these huge. Nope. Where is it? Profit. Oh, okay, yeah. So we kind of went through that. The drip. We're waiting for the rate to come down a little bit. Um, you got the costs, but recognize. So with that example, the way you, so the way, I guess the way that you're going to earn a profit, then let's say that example we just looked at is, let's say that's my situation, which is it's unrealistic because that listing price is not going to happen. We just looked at one where the rents were 1200 for 800. So hell no, right? Yeah. So eventually you just want to be able to hold out to where you can refi when the rates, it sounds like you just waiting for rates to come down so you can refi and start breathing more.
Or property value. Like I said, certain people, this is what, okay, let's say my house, right? My house is worth $400,000 right now. Say I had to get rid of it. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm moving. I'm leaving jobs. Like, I got to get rid of it. It's no ifs, ands, or buts. This thing's leaving, right?
Right.
So it's $400,000, but I paid 250 for it, and my debt is only 210 on it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it says it's worth $400,000, but if somebody runs me the rent rate and says, "Dude, I got to pay $5,000 for this, I can't pay that." How about this? And then say that I'm stressed and I go from 400 to 375 to 350 to 325. Dude, I could come all the way down to 225 and still make money on it. You see what I mean? So these asset prices has inflated, woo, since COVID, really, since 2019, really. These asset prices are warm. I made $100,000 off my property in 2 years, dude, and it's a $250,000 asset, and I paid $10,000 for the asset, right? So as the asset prices are inflating, um, basically you have to get more. You people think it's worth this, but they can settle for this because this is actually what they have in skin in the game. They want to make $150,000 and do all this stuff with it, but if I have to sell, I will settle for all the way half what it's literally worth. And that's what people are about to run into because there's no buyers. My wife is a real estate agent, right? There's no buyers, none. There's no sellers, none. So what happens is that if you're not coming in from California used to these high ass prices and think that this is a good price for stuff, you're not buying. I'm not going from this neighborhood to the next neighborhood and doubling my payment right now. Nobody's doing it. So only cash buyers. Any cash buyer ain't buying right now because CDs are 5%. Why would I put in a risk asset whenever I can put it in a guaranteed asset at 5% and not have to have no headaches in it? So until them CD rates drop, we're going to be in a bubble where investors ain't investing in real estate until one of two things happens: prices drop or interest drops, because investors don't care about how cute the thing looks. They want money. At the end of the day, they want cash flow. And so if the thing cash flows, I'll buy it. But if I can put it in something else that's easier, I'm putting it in that. And a bunch of these assets are starting to compete. This is why I'm getting a little bit more bullish on these stocks, because I can understand my position. I think that we're kind of wrong thinking that the consumers are doing good, because I don't think that they are, highest credit card debt and all this stuff. But I think that there is a record amount of cash waiting on it to drop, right? Would you agree with that?
Um, yeah. There's a record amount of cash. Oh yeah, there's a record amount of cash.
Sitting on the
Don't
sidelines.
let me get into the recession. Don't let me get into that.
No, but but
The
but, but I'm saying, we're talking real estate, right? So
yeah.
in real estate, consumers matter a lot. It's not just like what drop. Unemployment hurts real estate. It doesn't help real estate, whereas it can help stocks.
Yeah, like
It hurts.
the normal consumer is okay that has a mortgage because they're locked in, but the real estate market, the people flipping and doing properties, they're the ones who are in trouble because their rates are too high. They can't sell. They're
Yeah.
stuck where they're at, or they're
Yep.
losing on it. versus the mortgage people. Actually, their debt to income, or I'm sorry, their consumer debt, their credit card debt to mortgage debt, or to, I'm sorry, their mortgage debt to income is actually lowering, is falling to disposable income. I just showed that yesterday, or maybe I didn't make a video. I guess I didn't do a stream yet. So it's like this market's weird because the consumer's okay. They'll keep spending. I know you disagree a little bit, but I think they're going to keep spending because their spending power is actually going up and their house is worth more. But the real
Yeah.
estate market, what the hell? You need the Fed to cut rates at some point.
You need the Feds to cut rate or it to plateau these rates for long enough that it's normal for people to have rates. Right now, everybody, like 90% of mortgages are less than 4%. And so for me to go from a less than 4% interest rate to an 8% interest rate, it will more than double my payment. So I'll go from like 3,000 to like 6,500. And so nobody can do that. Nobody can do that. Even the same house, like a $500,000 house, I'm just going to go buy another $500,000 house. It's going to double your payment for the same price. So everybody's locked into their houses right now. Some people have to move though. So some people are going to be in a position where, hey, I got to get rid of it. It's not the fact that I want to, I have to. This is where I differ on you. Credit card debt would not be at an all-time high if we have all-time cash. We do have all-time cash sitting, and credit cards are at an all-time high. So where are we missing out? Because if cash is sitting at an all-time high, you would just pay it in cash versus credit. What happens is the normal consumer, the consumer debt, they're in trouble. Investors, dude, they're sitting in a lot of cash. And that kind of goes to your point about the stocks is, if I have a lot of cash sitting in a CD and that CD goes from 5% to 3.5%, I'll probably pull that cash and put it into stocks, or I'll pull that cash and put it into real estate, or I'll pull that cash and put it into Bitcoin. But I don't think that cash sitting is American, like average American cash.
Average American. Yeah. No, you're right.
You're
right. Most of that cash is the wealthy. Oh, he cut off. Most of that cash is the wealthy for sure. But so that's going to go into, stocks or real estate once things drop. But the consumer, what I'm saying is, because they're still locked in at 3.5%, most of them,
right,
their debt is climbing. Their debt has been climbing, but because their houses rose so much and are still rising to some degree, their credit card ratio, so their debt to income ratio, is actually falling, meaning they still have more income than they did pre-pandemic. That's what's crazy. They still have more income ratio there. So nothing changes. I don't think anything changes. Plus, come on, Joe Biden's going to print. But
yeah,
it's weird. This is the weirdest market we've ever seen, right? Hey,
it is. And go for it.
No, I was just going to say, Tigger Media asked you, he's going to ask you some questions. Do you only buy investment properties that do not have existing tenants, or does that matter?
So you would rather them have existing tenants. And then what would happen is, say that you're going to buy it and these leases are going to be everywhere, right? So you're going to buy it. One lease is going to be up in 3 months. One lease is going to be up in 6 months. One lease is 12 months. One lease is 8 months. They'll kind of be all over. So what you'll do, you want them rented at a lower value than what you think is the market value. So if you can get them to rent it at a lower value, or if you can buy it, rent it at a lower value, you're buying it at a cap rate from a lower value. So you're buying it at a 6% cap rate, say on $750,000, versus a 6% cap rate at $1 million if you can elevate them rents. And so that my favorite thing is I'll scout these quadplexes, and I'm actually turning more into a commercial investor, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But what I used to do whenever I was buying the quadplexes a lot is I would scour the areas that I really like quadplexes, right? Like, you know how it is, like you gotta find the right area. You can't be in a ghetto where it doesn't rent. You gotta be in something that's looking good, you know what I mean? So I'll scout these areas and I'll know exactly these zones. I have 3 zones in Colorado Springs that I just target. And anytime something comes up in those in those zones, I'll run the numbers on it and see if I can do it. And I'll even contract the agent and say, hey, it's upside down. Would they be willing to negotiate? Da, 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 da. And so what I'm doing is a perfect example. I have this one. Quadplexes around here, you can get a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom. They'll rent from about 1,400 to about 1,600 where I'm at. 1,600 in this area that is really a nice area. And so what I did is I found one that was renting for $900 a square foot. I mean, not a square foot, a unit. And I thought I can rent it for 1,400. And so there was a big gap that I can tell. This dude owned it for 30 years. He's just ready to retire. He just wants to cash out. He bought it for $150,000. I'm about to give him $950 for it, stuff like that. And so basically, he has it priced at a price that was a little bit too high for what it was renting, because it was renting for kind of a break-even mark. So the debt on it would be the debt and bills would be like $4,000, and the thing makes $4,000. So it's like I come to him and I was explaining that, hey, this is upside down. I can't buy it because I'm an investor. I need to make money off of it. Trying to explain for him to come down. We weren't able to get him to come down as much as we needed for it to cash flow currently, because you want it to currently cash flow, not what you think it can cash flow for. It needs to hit that 6% cap rate on what it currently rents for. And then you buy it at that depreciated price. Then you elevate it with the rents, and then you can cash out refinance once it's rented for more. So some tenants will be 3 months rented. What you do is after they get done with their 3 months, hey, new tenants or new contract. Here's the new contract. Here's the new rent rate. They're going to say, hell no, or they're going to say, all right, I have to deal with it. And that's whenever you either have to market it and rent it, or you have to up the price and then just let them keep going. I'll try and, because there is a hassle in switching tenants. So say that I think I can get it to 1,400, but it's 900. That's a big jump to make somebody pay 500 extra in 1 year. What I'll do is I'll climb it. So I'll do, because you want that tenant staying in there for sure, right? Especially if they like it. So what you'll do is say, all right, well, if I kick them out, it's probably at least a month I got to eat, right? So how about we go 1,250? Can you do 1,250 and kind of cut the difference with them? Get it to rent a little bit higher, but not take the risk of a tenant leaving. And so if they say, nope, I'm not going at 1,250, then I jump it to 14 and try and rent it from there. Facebook market literally is probably the best place to rent this shit. You got, I don't know, the for sale or the garage sale places and stuff like that. Look in those Facebook groups, post your property, post the details in it. Some people, oh, you can't get 1,600. Same thing for shit like this. But don't worry about people. Just try and rent it, and you can do it. Real estate agents, property managers, they'll all help you rent as well if you're willing to pay a little fee.
Okay. Shoot, I think we've hit everything.
Let me go into one thing, Jeremy. Hold on,
yeah, go for it.
Go for it.
Squeeze this juice out.
Yeah. So, and this is probably the best of it. Let me see where this is. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you guys about commercial real estate, because I was a young investor and I started with a house, and then I bought another house, then I bought a quadplex, then I bought another house, and I bought a commercial property, and I bought another commercial property, right? So I've got like the issues that you guys are going to deal with. I've dealt with them firsthand as an idiot, right? And I've had to jump through all these loops, and we've had to evict people, and we've had to, like Jeremy's saying, oh, this is gonna somebody doesn't pay rent, and what do you do? And all these problems we've had to deal with under these multifamily homes, right? And we ended up getting into a spot where I figured out commercial property, commercial real estate. And commercial real estate is, everybody thinks it's crashing right now, but that's office buildings pretty much are crashing right now. Commercial real estate, if you can think of A plus commercial real estate is what you want to invest in, I'm about to explain why. So pretty much like we've been explaining, it's literally bought off of a cap rate. So a cap rate basically tells you, all right, get $1 million in it, 6% back, $60,000 all profit, right? So everything's bought like that. So you can literally dictate how much your property is worth based off what you rent it as. The biggest thing with commercial real estate is it has triple net. Now, triple net is, it should be almost illegal. I thought it was whenever I got into real estate. I was like, what? They're making me pay for everything? Triple net literally makes the tenants, and these are businesses, it makes them pay for every common expense that is associated with the building. So basically, it'll make you pay for taxes. It'll make you pay for insurance, building improvements, common area improvements, security, landscaping, snow removal, parking lots, refinished, anything almost that you pay for on that building, the tenant gets forwarded the charge. How they get forwarded it is in a percentage. So say you have a 10,000 square foot building, they own 1,000 square foot, they get 10% of the triple net charge, and that's monthly feed to them, basically a monthly fee for them. So we literally take, in a commercial building, we take all the charges, the fees off of it. When we're looking at a loan payment now, we're not looking at fees because the fees are paid by the tenants. We don't have to look at all these stuff. I'm talking A plus real estate right now, because you don't want to get a back alley real estate. I'm talking the best real estate you can buy in the best location you can buy, right? And this is commercial real estate. Okay. The other thing is it has huge write-offs. Whenever you get into the big money, it's the same cost segregation analysis that I was explaining to you guys, but there are huge write-offs to it, because you can write off 80% of that property. And whenever you get into commercial real estate, it gets to be bigger numbers, basically. So we did, I think it was like a $500,000 house, how much it saved us earlier. Just bigger numbers will save you more on taxes. And you can spread this taxes out through the 27.5 years, or cost segregation analysis, make it happen all in 80% in 1 year, and then the rest of the 20% gets spread out. So that's another way that you can do it. There is issues in it. You do have to have 30% down. These ones that I'm buying right now are 30% down that they're making me have. They have 15 to 25% 15 to 25 year amortization periods. So amortization on a normal mortgage loan, the amortization period is 30 years. That's basically when you pay it off at. Amortization means when is it going to get paid off at. So these have tighter windows. So they're 15 or 25 year windows. So a little bit more monthly payment into them. But like I said, you just have to make sure that you know your numbers and do your research on everything. The banks look at the property, not your finances. That's how come I started off by telling you guys, the banks don't look at my finances anymore. They don't even look at my credit score anymore. They literally looked at the last one I did. They said, you were successful on that one. So now we're going to look at the property. What does the property produce? If the property produces that 1.25% or that 75% that Jeremy was talking about, then your property will pass the bank. The bank will lend you on the property, basically. Okay. And like I said, the bank needs minimum of 125% debt to income for the property. And that's residential or commercial. They won't loan you unless the thing will produce cash. They're saving you from making a bad decision. So that's actually a good thing as well. A couple things on a commercial thing. You can use hard money. So a lot of you guys out there will be like, I don't got 100,000. I don't got $150,000 of hard money, liquid money. You can go to a investor, a hard money investor. That's what they do, is they loan their money for big return, basically. these loans that you do on hard money, you need to be able to get rid of them somewhat quickly. So you need to be able to be like, hey, in a year and a half, I can see how I can get this debt gone, because they're going to eat you up in interest. So it's a good way to get started, but you need to be able to have like a cash out refinance strategy or some other strategy that you can say, hey, it's going to produce X amount of cash and we could pay this loan off, or we can make it worth this much and then pay this loan off. Somehow you got to get that hard money off, because what a lot of people won't tell you is that hard money is almost 100% interest up front. So just make sure that you get the hard money off. Make sure that the property is properly evaluated. If anybody has any questions on this, you can definitely contact me on anything. I got TikTok, I got YouTube, I got Facebook, I got Twitter. Anything that you guys got questions on, I'm more than happy with helping you guys, especially Jeremy's channel, because
I
Jeremy's awesome. He's helped me out.
Yeah, I got Tanner's. I got your YouTube, your Twitter, your TikTok, your Instagram. I didn't get your Facebook in there though.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll keep doing these. We got to get better at it.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is the year. Like, I think this is the biggest
Yep.
opportunity is this real estate plus the stock market plus crypto. We're going to keep hitting on it. We'll make the stream better. We'll get better at the questioning, whatever it is, but we're trying to deliver the best value we possibly can to whoever. Hey, if we can help one person get better, right? And we're going to
Mhm.
also, we might even make I don't want to say a new channel, but eventually for some other content, just because you can't talk about it on air. So we'll
Yeah.
we'll do that. I know that content's going to be a lot more interesting too. Do you only buy, but this is to make money. How are we going to leverage the future? We got to think into the future, not just today, now, but what is going to happen in the future? What is the actual opportunity going forward? So let me see. Investing properties that do not have. What's the debt to income ratio you mentioned that the bank want to see in order to lend to you?
3 to 1 is normal.
3 to
Some
1.
people will give you 40% debt to income, but most banks or most lenders will be 3 to 1. You got $3,000, they'll let you be 1,000 in debt, and that's total debt. That's not just housing debt. That's credit card debt. That's your auto loans. That's braces.
Do they do
Anything, all your debt.
student loan debt? Do they mess with
I
student
don't,
loan debt?
I don't think they do student loan debt, to be honest, because student loan debt, you don't got to pay that shit off, do you?
Not really. I mean,
Not
I still
really. I
have
mean,
mine. I never paid it off.
yeah,
I
just
can
sit in it.
refi.
Yeah. No, student loan debt, you don't even get me started on that.
Yep. So okay. So yeah. Well, and I know this is a long stream, but it was mostly for if you had live questions, whatever it was. I had a lot of questions, but that definitely educated me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Tanner, I'm
No, and I
gonna
appreciate you exposing your audience to this, Jeremy. I'll wrap up my segment. Just, I think that kind of like Jeremy's saying, we're getting into a time where it's about to be, like I said, I've been pausing on all this stuff, but I'm starting to see, okay, this stuff's about to drop. Okay, this is about to move, and we're right in the sweet spot. Everybody for the last 2 years been telling you you're in the sweet spot. No, we're in the sweet spot here in the next year, here in the next 18 months, shit's gonna happen. And like I said, I think consumers are holding their breaths. Certain ones of them aren't going to be able to hold it that long. Um, there, 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 there are deals out there to get. Educate yourself. Don't take stupid risk. Educate yourself on everything. No different than the stocks you guys do. Educate yourself on that damn stock. Don't just buy a stock. Educate, educate, educate. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, definitely holler at me. I'll be on here another couple weeks, and we could run something different, or we'll do some stock shit, whatever. We'll do some politics. It doesn't matter. But I'm an investor. I do this stuff. I promise you, Dave Ramsey couldn't sit across from me and bring up some shit that I don't know. I do this every single day. This isn't just something that I talk about. I'm buying a property right now, and I'll show you the numbers on it whenever we get done buying it. This is what I do. I run numbers. I do educate myself. Just like Jeremy educates himself on stocks, I educate myself on properties. And so definitely contact me if you have any questions. I'm not talking out my ass. Everything I said, I've done. And let me know if you guys have any questions.
All right. Yeah. Well, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for joining, and we'll do it again. We'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah. Thank you, Trigger Media.
I'm all waiting for the music to play. I'm a newbie too, bro. That was the wrong song, bro. I gotta get better at this. Hold on, like here it is. There we go. There we go. That's an exit song. There we go. All right, guys.